we're going to go to 2.2. We have students waiting for 2.2. Okay, members of the board, let's get back together. We have some students waiting to speak on the DACA resolution.
Oh, for DACA.
We're going to 2.2. Okay, I think we're mostly back together. So we're going to take item 2.2 out of order. And let me first begin by apologizing to the group of students that have been waiting to speak. I didn't realize you guys were here to speak on that matter. And if I had known that, I would have actually pulled you out of order, pulled that item out of order, and taken it ahead of the Western Governors University. So I apologize to you, and I really deeply apologize. I know some of you are missing work and missing class to be here, so we're going to take this matter up right now. So we're taking up matter 2.2, board resolution urging Congress to act to provide immediate and permanent protections for DACA students. Deputy Chancellor Skinner.
Good afternoon, President Estolano, Chancellor Oakley, members of the board. The item before you is the resolution supporting DACA students and urging an immediate and permanent resolution to this matter. I have with me interim General Counsel Jake Knapp, who's been integral to our team in terms of working on these issues. He'll be here to answer questions about some pending litigation if there are any. As you know, we've been sending regular updates to the board and to the system on this matter, so we'll try to keep this presentation pretty succinct, but we're definitely available to answer any questions you have. So on September 5th, the Trump administration announced that it would be ending DACA pending a 6-month delay in order to allow congressional action. This action affects over 800,000 individuals nationwide, over 200,000 individuals in California, and tens of thousands of those are in our system. And so this action has an incredibly disruptive and disturbing effect on these individuals in terms of threatening their work, their studies, and their way of life. In response, there was broad mobilization at the national, state, and local levels on this issue. Immediate statements of criticism and towards the Trump administration and statements of support for DACA students were issued. I want to focus on a few of the actions within our system that we took in order to respond to this situation, the first of which, President Estolano, you mentioned before, the Quick Response Committee was activated. That body, which has membership from the board and from key Chancellor's Office staff, has met twice to coordinate, share information, and target response. One of the outcomes of that committee is the resolution in front of you. In addition, the Chancellor's Office has been working to gather information about available resources. We provided that information to the colleges to assist in their efforts. Some of the examples of that work include a communications toolkit that was shared with colleges. We maintain a resource page on our website that has extensive information about legal services that are available to students. It includes updates about current developments. One of the key issues that we're focusing on now is a window that's open for renewal applications for DACA recipients, DACA participants. This is critical. Individuals whose DACA authorization expires by March 5th, I believe, are given a window to reapply now. So it's between now and October 5th that those renewals can be submitted, and that would be critical to those individuals to extend their DACA protections. To assist with that effort. Not only is it important that we get the word out across the system about the renewal process, but also share information that there are resources available to help, not only legal resources, but also material resources. And two foundations have stepped up. The Mission Asset Foundation and the Weingart Foundation have put forward resources to fully cover the fees that individuals must pay when they're submitting their DACA reauthorization, which is a $495 fee. So information about that, it's available on the Chancellor's Office website under our DACA resources. So please, we want everybody to spread the word about that. In addition, the legislature recently and governor recently allocated $30 million to assist with these efforts. $20 million of that is targeted towards legal services programs up and down the state. Another $10 million is in financial aid for Dreamers, for the way it structures AB 540 students. And those resources, the $10 million spread across the three segments. $7 million is coming to the community colleges, and those funds will be put out to colleges so that they can share financial aid with their AB 540 students locally. So that's still coming down the pike, but as soon as we have a little more detail about it, then we'll share information with the colleges so they can anticipate and prepare for that. So in addition, there is some legal action underway. Several states have sued the Trump administration. California is involved in one of those suits. In addition, the University of California has also sued the Trump administration over these matters. In closing, again, Jake is here to answer questions if you have them about the legal situation. In closing, there are some promising rumors coming out of Washington, some signals about a potential deal. And our mindset on it is we're going to proceed with our action, both continuing to share information, to message, to show our support for DACA students, to mobilize resources. And we hope that an agreement is announced, but until then, it's prudent to continue down this path. So that concludes the presentation. We're available for questions.
Deputy Chancellor. Jake, did you want to add anything, or
Sure, I'd
be able to respond to questions?
I'd be happy to go into some of the background on the lawsuits that are pending now, if that would be the board's pleasure, or I can wait to see if there are any questions.
I think we're okay, yeah. We'll see. Are there any questions from the members of the board? We have quite a few comment cards, I think. So why don't we go ahead and get into that?
I don't have cards on this.
We're going to, why don't we take some public comment? And then we'll do the motion, yeah.
Okay, Lynette Niaga, sorry. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I have a very simple message for you, and that message is thank you. Thank you, Chancellor, for your immediate and strong statement. Thank you, Jake, for your legal advice that came out following quickly on the Chancellor's statement. CCA put out a press release on the same day, and I have made copies for the Board of Governors so that you know what we said. And all that I have to say is that you are working and we are working together, all of us, for our students. What matters is that our students have the opportunities they need, and to pull the rug out from under them when they are planning for a bright future is not what it means to be an American. So that is all. That's all there is. And thank you again.
Emmanuel Gonzalez. And Maria Zacharias.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Maria Zacarias. I'm a current student here at Santa Ana College, and I would like to applaud you on all of the actions that you have been taking, but I would also like to I'd like to propose an edit to the current subject, which would like to. So it states that the board resolution urging Congress to act to provide immediate and permanent protections for DACA students. And I would like to, as an undocumented student myself, I would like to remind you all that it's not just undocumented students that are affected by these actions by the administration. It is also our fellow undocumented community members that are also affected by this. And when our fellow undocumented community is affected by it, we are also, as students, undocumented, and our studying becomes interrupted. If an undocumented student's parents get deported, the student is no longer just the student. The student ends up being the primary caretaker. If someone's family member, younger sibling, ends up becoming deported, that student will no longer just be a student. That student will also have to figure out how to help their parents or their single parent cope with this and have to maneuver through the legal system. So I understand that you all are taking priority of DACA students, but also keep in mind that there are also other mixed status families, and it's really complicated. So I would just remind not to leave the rest of our undocumented community behind, because an injury to one is an injury to all. If someone that is not a student but is undocumented ends up being deported, an undocumented student's learning will become affected by this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emmanuel Gonzalez, and I'm a current student here at SAC. And just what she mentioned, it's DACA, it's great, but it only protects certain people. And is for one reason or the other that they don't qualify for DACA initially, they're left out of the program, and all their potential is being pushed down simply because they didn't qualify for DACA. And it's before I applied for school, I didn't have DACA, and when I initially applied, they were charging me $4,000 just to come to school. I didn't know about 8540 or different programs. So I am grateful for those programs that they have. But if we don't do something that helps not just DACA students, but all the undocumented students as well, there's a lot of potential that's not being, put out there simply because they don't meet one or two criteria. And like how she mentioned, I don't live with my parents anymore, but my mom takes care of my 3 other siblings. If anything were to happen to her, where she has to go back to Mexico, I have to take that responsibility of providing for my 3 other siblings. So school wouldn't be my priority anymore. My priority will be helping my family members. And there's a thing that by protecting not just the DACA students, but the whole undocumented community, you are empowering the school itself, because you're actually encouraging more students to come to school, knowing that they'll be safe here and knowing that their family members are going to be safe at home, not having to worry about, I'm here, about what's going to happen to them while they are working or they're just doing their errands. And that's why we, as students, encourage you guys to take into consideration and to just not just protect DACA students, but the undocumented community as well. Because like she said, if you hit one of us, you're going to hit all of us. And together, that's the only way where we can actually protect each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney Cooper and Julie Bruno.
Members of the board, I think that I echo the earlier sentiments that mostly I just want to say thank you for such a rapid response, not only by the board, by President Estelano, but also by our intersystem partners. We have had previously and presently Dreamers on the Student Center for California Community Colleges. We had one last year that actually had to wind up selling their laptop just to pay their DACA fees. And so to not just have a resolution in words, but to actually back it up with amazing actions and partnerships such as the Mission Asset Fund to make sure that our students can remain in school and encourage them not to give up despite the actions being taken at the federal level is amazing. I'd like to also give thanks to Ms. Laura Mattoon from the Chancellor's Office, CCLC, and FAC. We will be working on a joint effort in response, and these students will be sharing their voices, not only those who are undocumented, but also allies, to let the system know that we value these students, we value our community members, and that we stand with our dreamers. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. Chancellor Oakley, the Academic Senate is absolutely and completely supportive of this resolution. It's in line with many that we have also adopted at our plenary sessions. And I do hope that it serves as a model for all 72 districts to pass something similar in support of these students. They're critical to the success of our state. So we want to make sure that we support them in any way. And again, thank you so much for the rapid response and everything that we're doing. We really do appreciate it, and the Academic Senate's 100% behind all of this effort.
Zeke Hernandez and Adam Wetzman.
Hello, I'm Adam Wetzman. I am the president of the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, FAC. I'm a professor of anthropology at Rio Hondo College, right up the road, about 4 hours in LA traffic. Again, I'd like to echo some of the things that have already been said. We do appreciate the very rapid response from the system, from Chancellor Oakley, working with the other two segments of higher education in California to show support for this critical group of students. FAC is committed to dedicating our resources to help in any way possible. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you. President Estolano, members of the Board of Governors, and Chancellor Oakley. My name is Zeke Hernandez. I'm here as president of Santa Ana LULAC, League of United Latin American Citizens. And it was established here in Santa Ana in 1946. Nationally, the organization was established in 1929. But before I get any further, because I won't want to kick my rump when I walk back to my seat, I also am here also because I'm a trustee with the College Board of Trustees, Rancho Santiago Community College, and certainly would like to thank the colleges all behind the orange curtain that are here in Orange County, because they are here in attendance also, chancellors and presidents and administrators from those college districts and the colleges here in Orange County. In terms of myself, back in the early days, I was a community advisor to the OCDT, which is the Orange County Dream Team. And they were a group of students back at the time when there was dark clouds, and they were very, very afraid to go out publicly to say that they were undocumented. But they did their work. And within their work, we come through today, and so now they are not as afraid to come out publicly saying that they are undocumented. But in November, the dark clouds came back again, and so it's very difficult for many, many of those students who are undocumented and who have applied either for AB 540 or even under the DACA. I want to stress, I want to first of all, thank you for being so committed and so open and so very, very responsive to the plight of the undocumented students as well as the community resident. Like the student here that was here earlier, DACA students also, there's an extension of the DACA student, and that is the family, whether it's the parent, the siblings, the the cousins, they are all affected if the DACA is not extended, or if there's not a straight pathway to the citizenship. I think that we have to
30
be
seconds.
careful in terms of of the pathway, that there's no obstacles in terms of if DACA is extended, et cetera, in terms of legislation. But again, I want to thank you. I want to I want to say that we need to continue to support the DACA students and community members who are fall under DACA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other, no, further, okay. Any comments by members of the board? Board Member Belansky.
I was just going to move the action.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Did I take, for you? No.
And I want to
Annie.
make one
Okay.
comment. I suspect that we will all vote in favor of this motion. So I would like to ask that when it goes out for to the public, that it state that it was unanimously endorsed.
Thank you, Board Member Belansky. Board Member Shaw.
So I'm just curious, what percentage of our students are non-DACA, and what
That is a difficult question because in order for us to know, a student needs to tell us their documented status. But I'd ask Jake if he has any indication of the numbers of undocumented students that we know of in the system.
or what if any, what can we do for them?
Well, many of our colleges do not intentionally do not ask about undocumented status, but anecdotally, it would be in the tens of thousands.
Right. So typically what happens is there are resources available at most of our campuses, and we encourage students who are either DACA students or AB 540 students or consider themselves Dreamer or undocumented to seek services. And so our centers do a very good job of trying to connect them with the resources that are available. And the other thing we do for them is we will protect all of their personal information, whether they're undocumented, DACA, AB 540. It is our intent to protect their information. But certainly, I mean, ultimately, comprehensive immigration reform is what is needed to cover all of these individuals. And certainly that is, although that's not in the resolution currently, that is certainly something that we communicate to Congress that it is in the best interest of our entire student body that there be comprehensive immigration reform. Because as was noted, it affects the entire family, not just the DACA student.
Other board members? Board Member Baum.
I want to thank the leadership of the Chancellor and President Estolano, Vice President Epstein. I consider this an opportunity because for those of us who've been around for a while, we've been supporting adoption of the DREAM Act for many years. In fact, one of the reasons I'm on this board was because this board took measures in 10 years ago to support Dreamers, and it cost a few board members their seats in the California State Legislature. And I was appointed in that wake. And so if we see this, instead of kind of cursing the darkness, say, this is finally our window to get the DREAM Act passed, or some version of it, that's where I'm thrilled that we're moving forward in that direction, and I wholeheartedly support this effort.
Member Sumner. Thank you, Board Member
Oh,
Baum.
the one other thing,
yeah,
too,
please.
is that this is an opportunity for us to hold our leaders accountable on both sides of the aisle. If, as Vice President Epstein and Chancellor Oakley will remember, the majority leader of the House of Representatives told Chancellor Oakley in the U.S. Capitol that they would not withdraw, it would not retreat from DACA, that the President wouldn't and the Congress wouldn't. And I have a photo of him telling the Chancellor that himself. So that's something that I'm counting on us, Laura and others, to remind them of, because I think there's a number of California Republicans who understand the need to find a legislative solution to the DREAM Act.
Board Member Sumner.
I was just wondering if there was any way we can take the comments that some of the students made and put that into this resolution.
Absolutely. I have a couple proposed changes that would broaden the the be it resolved clause to be more than just in support of DACA recipients, but in support of the entire undocumented community. One way to do that would be to have the final clause read, resolve that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of the undocumented community and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently preserve the DACA program. So we're broadening our support, or you'd be broadening your support to more than just the DACA recipients, consistent with the earlier comments, and supporting the entire undocumented community.
I think that's a good addition, but, you know, I'm very glad that Board Member Baum reminded folks of the history. I don't think many folks understand the history of this board and how controversial it was when board members were not confirmed because of their position. They lost their position on this Board of Governors because they stood up for the undocumented community. And we have come from things have changed dramatically in California as a result of that. I also want to note that it took quite a bit of courage for 2 undocumented students to file a speaker card with their name and address in a public body and state on the record their position with their address as a public record. So I want to thank the 2 of you for doing that. Thank you for admonishing me during the break. I also want to note that, you know, 25 odd years ago, this state became the bellwether of what the national government is now currently experiencing. When Prop 187 was passed, it mobilized a generation of Latinos, not just undocumented people, but Latinos across the board, to understand the need for greater political power and greater political participation. As a direct result of Proposition 187 passing in 1994, within 10 years, there had been a complete transformation of the California legislature, to the point that today, the Speaker of the Assembly and the President pro tem of the Senate are Latinos who cut their teeth in that movement. So I would propose that along with Jake's language, I'll make a friendly amendment, and Board Member Belansky, tell me if you're willing to accept it, that we add an additional resolve. Be it further resolved that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors calls on the California delegation to support comprehensive immigration reform for the future of California and this great nation. Do I have a second on that friendly amendment?
I accept the changes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm definitely
Great.
second.
I know it's controversial, but I do feel like so much has changed that Board Member Baum was absolutely right. The meeting that they had with the majority leader was pretty tremendous that we had those assurances. I think that both sides of our delegation, both sides of the aisle, understand the value that undocumented individuals bring to this country, and that, in fact, so much of the backbone of our economy depends on the work and labor and ambition and tireless struggle of the undocumented community, and has since the beginning of this state. So I'm willing to take a vote on the amendment motion and respect all of you if you choose not to support it. I understand it's a little bit more than we certainly anticipated when we started this, but this is a different moment. We are on the cusp of quite a big mass movement that is beginning in this country, and these 2 students that came before us are the tip of the spear. Board Member Baum.
Just speak to that too, though. I don't think, I support a move for comprehensive immigration reform. I think I want to make sure we don't run the risk of broadening so much our focus of this resolution.
I understand.
Too. But I'm not opposed to saying, and in addition to this, we support a push for comprehensive immigration reform. I don't think that'll be a problem, but I would have to caution any further dilution of the focus of the resolution.
So Jake, can you pop it in the first resolution, in the first sentence, and maybe just draft it so that we can add it on as a phrase rather than a call out? Is that what you're saying, Jeff?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So rather than a separate, be it
Yeah.
resolved, be it further resolved, include
Yeah.
a reference to absolutely.
Yeah, it's just a drafting issue. It's already a long compound sentence, but I'll let go of my editor's inclination today. I think there's a way to draft that. But I think I support what you're saying. If that's okay, Board Member Belansky, if we keep it in the same resolution? Any other comments on the amended motion?
I still think we need to have his comments in
Oh,
there
yes.
also.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like me to read a
Yeah,
revised?
that would be great.
Okay, so now we have just the resolved and not a be it further resolved. Just the
Yeah.
existing resolved would now read, resolved that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of the undocumented community and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently preserve the DACA program
No, that's not my understanding of the.
It says it
He's going to
already
add it
there.
at the end.
and implement comprehensive immigration reforms so that all of our students can realize their full potential and continue to make meaningful contributions to their communities in the state of California.
Oh, you didn't put the comprehensive immigration reform. I thought you were going to do that.
That's.
He did.
I included comprehensive immigration reform after permanently preserve the DACA program
Okay.
and implement comprehensive immigration reform.
No, that's not my, I mean, I can't support that. No, I'm fine if, I'm just speaking, remain steadfastly in support of DACA recipients and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently request. And then you could add a further call for, to advocate comprehensive immigration reform, separate, without a reference to an umbrella undocumented community.
So you want two resolved?
No, I
No, he
would
just
prefer
wants
not,
to-
I would prefer to keep it as is.
So let me try it. So here's what I'm hearing you say, and sorry to do this, but I'd love to get a unanimous vote. That the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of DACA recipients and calls on Congress,
Serve the DACA program for all of our students who realize the potential that may, and furthermore, work toward comprehensive immigration reform.
comprehensive immigration reform. And permanently preserve the DACA program, and furthermore, work towards comprehensive immigration reform, comma, so that all of our students can realize their full potential and continue to make meaningful contributions to their communities, and so on. Catch that?
Is there any way that could be written out? Because we're going back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, I'll read it to you again. Resolved that the
That's
California
more
Community
problematic.
Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of DACA recipients and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently preserve the DACA program and further
Say that again.
and further work towards comprehensive immigration reform. Then you pick up the rest of it, so that all of our students can realize their full potential.
I would recommend that we adopt this and then take on an immigration reform resolution that addresses the plight of the undocumented in a more comprehensive way separately. But I think we need to be focused on the DACA community. That's my opinion. And any dilution of that in a meaningful way, I can't support.
Yes, Board Member DeLilly.
I'm a little confused as to where we are parliamentary, but I'd like to make a motion with the second edition of Jake's revision to this resolution that included, after the DACA program, the comma before this last revision, if that makes sense.
I believe we had a motion on the floor from Member
Yeah.
Polanski with a friendly amendment.
Which somebody needs to read to us now.
Yes.
So the most recent,
Yeah,
most recent
Because that's the only
version-
thing on the floor right now.
Yes, the most recent version with friendly amendment, I believe, Member Polanski, is resolved that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of DACA recipients and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently preserve the DACA program and further work toward comprehensive immigration reform so that all of our students can realize their full potential and continue to make meaningful contributions to their communities and the state of California.
Board Member Belansky, is that an accurate representation?
That will work.
Okay. Board Member DeLily, did you catch it?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the one that you wanted to have voted on?
Yeah.
Okay. Board Member,
That mentioned undocumented at all? I didn't catch that. None.
Document, it wasn't there.
No.
And my concern is, we're talking DACA, but there are DREAM Act students.
yeah,
They're not in DACA, right? So we're leaving a large population of our students in the system who are we're not considering, right? So that's my question. It's like, how are we incorporating those students in this commentary?
There was another suggestion that did not make it into the agreed-to friendly amendment on this motion that would replace, let me read this. Resolved that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of the undocumented community and calls on Congress with the remainder. That was a different version that replaced
I understand.
the undocumented community for the first reference to DACA recipients to broaden it, but that has not been agreed to with a friendly amendment yet.
yeah.
I could go along with Member Abalos if it's in support of DACA recipients and other undocumented students in the California community colleges. So I want to keep it focused on our students.
So, Board Member Belansky, I think you're being requested of another friendly amendment, or there's a motion to amend.
And I'm going to hear Jake read that out,
Okay.
please.
Read back? Okay, so the question for a friendly amendment, Member Belansky, would be resolved that the California Community Colleges Board of Governors declares that it remains steadfastly in support of DACA recipients and other undocumented students in the California community college system, and calls on Congress to immediately and permanently preserve the DACA program and further work toward comprehensive immigration reform so that all of our students can realize their full potential and continue to make meaningful contributions to their communities and the state of California.
I agree.
So that is the new motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Board Member Belansky. And the seconder is still in support. Okay, Board Member Hawkins. Other comments? Board Member Fawn? I'm sorry, did I?
Yep.
Okay. Do you in the queue?
No, I just
Yeah.
said, I'm seeing the heads shaking from the students that made the comments, and I just feel, does it really represent in the family? I mean, but I want them to understand, too, why it's worded the way it is, because I'm seeing them shake their heads, and they're the ones that have really brought the awareness to us, so.
I think the amendment addresses the entire undocumented community by saying that we want Congress to support
Immigration reform.
comprehensive immigration reform.
Board Member Fawn, Board Member Haynes, Board Member Belansky.
I like it the way it is. That was just last reiterated or mentioned.
Board Member Haynes?
Most people know my position. This is critically important with the largest state in the union, as well as the largest population of DACA students, and probably one of the largest populations of undocumented. And we really do, we cannot back away from this responsibility. We can't. We've set that bar, and the reality is we've put our California delegation on notice. So this supports that piece, and I don't think there really is a way for the Congress to back away relative to how it's going to solve this issue. It holds their feet to the fire, and this helps them do that.
Lastly, I have Board Member Belansky on his own motion.
Yeah, I just want to say a little story that I heard on the radio when I was driving to work this past week. They typically do a thing on NPR where they ask locals to make commentary. And a very young woman who is in school in the Bay Area in a college made the statement that I'm undocumented. I'm technically from Peru, not necessarily her words, but you know what I'm saying. I'm from Peru, and you're going to send me back to a country I have never been to, never been involved with, and I'm here going to school doing the right thing. And it was like, I can't believe this. My grandparents were all immigrants.
All right, call the question. Let's call the roll. Ms. Gilmer?
Oh.
Arnaldo Avalos,
Yes.
Jeffrey Baum,
Aye.
Joseph Belinsky,
Yes.
Iman Dalili,
Yes.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Cecilia Estelano,
Aye.
Danny Hawkins,
Aye.
Pamela Haynes,
Aye.
Mon Fon,
Aye.
Valerie Shaw, Nancy Sumner.
D.
Please say Friday.
That registers as a unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, on to something really exciting, approval of contracts and grants.
I'm sure this will be quick.
You've been wrong every time. Okay, I think that's Deputy Chancellor Skinner.
President, excuse me, President Estolano, Chancellor Oakley, members of the board, I will do my best to keep this brief. You've got the contracts and grants in front of you for approval. I would like to begin by noting that we did catch a typographical error in the contracts and grants item, so item 8. It should read, it's for an amount of $20 million. In the agenda as printed, it says $12 million, and it was a typographical error. So if I'd like to propose that change to the printed document. Beyond that, I'll just highlight a couple elements. The state budget provided some targeted investments in item 1 and item 7 of the contracts and grants. Item 1 is an allocation to Compton Community College, to the district there to support accreditation-related costs. So these funds, $11.3 million, will assist the Compton Community College District and Compton College in building out particularly technology systems, data systems, reporting systems, budgeting and planning tools that they need in order to comply with and continue to comply with the accreditation rules. So again, the legislature earmarked that money, as well as in number 7, there's $2 million earmarked for Norco College for their Veterans Resource Center, and expanding some of their services for veterans on their campus. So again, a couple legislative augmentations that came late in the process in items 1 and 7. And the last thing I'll note is just the biggest dollar item in the contracts and grants, which is the last one, item 11, which is the funding for the Strong Workforce Program, $248 million. This is the second year of that program's existence, and you'll note in the agenda that it has the breakout by district and by college. So just wanted to highlight those specific elements, and of course, I'm available for any questions you might have. So that concludes my presentation.
Board Member Belansky.
The first question is a question about moving forward with the last bullet. based on something I thought we did the last time at our meeting. I thought we were going to rebrand career technical education to
Yes.
career education. And I have 3 different places in this document we're using where that rebranding didn't happen. Now, am I correct? Or, because I went back to my district. I went back to my district and said, we're changing the name. That's my first one.
Vice Chancellor von Tonkenlinden? Oh, they don't have.
I think the short answer is it's a process, and we're refreshing as we move forward, but Vaughn may have additional information, yeah.
So it's Vice Chancellor Fee's recommendation that in order for us to do a proper outreach to students and their family, the phrase career education resonates with them. However, we know that the phrase career technical education is hard-coded in a lot of our legislation and statutes, so it'll take a while before that moves through.
Got it, thanks.
But we could start it here. Okay. I have one other question. In terms of this need for providing an online college for students and the governors, this online number 8, will that in any way get folded into that, or could it? No. And could we ever get a listing of which colleges are in fact involved in this process?
Yeah, we can definitely provide that. At this point, the online education initiative has expanded out to numerous institutions, numerous colleges that are piloting various phases of that. So we'd be happy to share that with you. I would note that one of the major elements is the purchase of a course management system, a CMS system across the California community colleges. And last I heard, I think 101 of our colleges are on that new platform. Canvas. And so that's an example of what we're doing with OEI, achieving cost savings, acting more like a system, and again, very broad-based participation. But let us provide some more comprehensive information about the participation.
Board Member Haynes?
So I'm not sure if this would cause confusion, but it is something that I've done, and that is to use both career technical education and technical education within the body of explaining things. That might be a transition where both terms can be used and people can get used to using both in either of them. Then you can then say, okay, well, we're moving to this.
Career education, right. Yes, Board Member.
Our initial move in Peralta was to say career education, parenthesis, formerly career technical education.
Formerly known as.
Formerly.
Great.
We're going to do a Prince thing.
Prince thing. I do have a question if there aren't any other board members with questions. Jake Knapp, on item 3, which is a contract with the Shaw Law Group. I mean, it's a relatively small amount, but it was non-competitive. I'm just wondering what matter was that? Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on this stuff? I did have one other point on item 8. I think we do this anyway, annually, but I just wanted to make sure we do get a report at least once a year on the progress on that. I mean, it's a big contract. We're doing a lot of stuff on this, on the telecommunications work in the virtual campus. And I just think if we could make sure, Deputy Chancellor, that we get an annual report. I think we do already, but I just want to make sure we button down, particularly in a lot of these information technology items, that we have some oversight. And maybe we do it twice a year rather than once a year.
Got it. There is, I know I've seen a draft of the written report on online education initiative. It's near completion, so the board will be receiving that. And in addition, agendizing whatever updates that the board feels appropriate,
Yeah.
we'd be happy to provide.
And I recall you did kind of a consolidated report a few months ago, but I think we just want to maybe do this twice a year, just given the amount of investment and what a major impact it'll have on our system, and then the need to keep on schedule. So I appreciate that. If there aren't any other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion. Board Member Sumner.
I have a comment regarding under 7, regarding with the veterans and the money that's going there. I mean, I know we didn't technically give any money. We'll bring it up under the budget later. but we just have to be really careful when we're watching $2 million and then the other $1 million. We talked about putting together a task force, and we want to make sure that we're going to get the best bang for our buck with this money, that there's already processes across all the DRCs, and there's probably more than, I think, 90 DRCs right now, that we just have to really collaboratively work together, because it just worries me when I say, oh, you get a lump sum of money, and I know Citrus College here's got $1 million, I'm really excited, but it's like, we have to really put together that task force, which we did talk about moving forward, because the deliverables on this, and we don't want to see money that's there that we don't take care of the veterans, because all the other college campuses don't have funding, which I'll bring up again later. So, but I just had a concern about that, because it's like sort of vague.
I think this was directed by the legislature.
But I'm still going to be a voice.
Absolutely. Okay, may I entertain a motion for approval of the contracts and grants?
Move approval.
Okay, I got DeLilly,
Second.
we'll let him have it, and Haynes will be the second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, how's everybody doing?
5 minutes?
Cold? Okay.
Staying awake.
Okay, let's keep going. We have some major items coming up. Let's keep going. The next is item 2.3, adoption of system-wide goals identified in the strategic vision. Sandy Freed.
And as Ms. Freed comes up, I just want to thank the board for your engagement in the goals in the strategic vision. I think it's been very helpful. Thank you, President Stolano, for making that happen. Obviously, this is key to our office in setting in motion the strategic vision. So with that, I will turn it over to Sandy Freed.
Good morning, Chair Estolano, or good afternoon by now, Chair Estolano, Vice Chair Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board. At your retreat in July, we presented to you the 6 system-wide goals recommended in the vision, and the board decided to break into work groups to study each of those goals, to look at the information underlying them and the plan to meet those goals.
Oh. Yeah, we can have the chairs of the various work groups report back, I think with some support from Chancellor's office staff who were there. Work group 1.
That was my group, Madam Chair, I think.
Please go ahead, Board Member Fawn.
So before I begin, I want to applaud and appreciate you and the Vice Chair for really putting us to work over the past 2 months. I thought that the opportunity to carve out some time and explore further in depth the goals. In our case, it was goal number 1 and number 2 for a work group. And in so doing, it helps us to understand the nuances of the particular goals. And after our phone conference, along with a few guests who were in attendance, we made the recommendation to preserve the language and the figures as originally stated in the goals 1 and 2. I think that language is extremely important in this document, and it is a strategic vision. A vision, as we all know, is something that an organization aspires to become or aspires to achieve. And many will probably say that 20% in the increase in the number of students, not the number of certificates or degrees, may be too high or too aspirational, or the fact that 35% increase in the number of students transferring to a UC or CSU campus. And remember, if we're in the business world and we're trying to establish goals, we want to know for sure that we have the wherewithal and in control of the tools in order to achieve that goal, right? But if for number 2, it is really the function of the CSU and the UC to take additional 10,000 or 15,000 students. So if they close the door on us and say that, oh, we only have seats for 5 years from now, the public will kind of look at us and say, well, why did you set the goal of 15 when you can't be in control of that? But we felt that since this document is an aspiration for our system to embark on, by preserving the language of transferring to both the UC and the CSU only, and not the private, and the initiative we looked at this morning is part of those transfers. We felt that it's important to keep the language there so that our system chancellor could foster a true intersegmental conversation and put his counterparts on the hot seat. So I think it's very strategic in the thinking, and if we are transforming systems to achieve a better result, we felt that 22% versus 20% or 33% versus 35%, to us, that doesn't matter. What matters is that we transform systems, reconfigure things, and reimagine how we do things so that we can produce the numbers that we're aspiring to achieve. And I think with that, members of my committee, Nancy Sumner and Iman was on that day tied up with another work group, so he wasn't able to join us. But together with the Executive Vice Chancellor and some guests from our academic Senate, we felt that preserving goals number 1 and number 2 as is the right way to do. So those are our comments, and Board Member Sumner may comment further.
Yeah, Board Member Sumner.
It was a really good discussion. One of the questions we had was, now we have the apparatus really have more accurate numbers, where we can report more numbers, because we wanted more figures. What are our exact numbers? We always talk about numbers, but now with the tracking system and with FON and everything, I think it's going to be really great that we can see the numbers. But I said this will force the chancellor to really work on those MOUs, and it was neat to see the MOU signed today. But I mean, to really push the UCs, because we did bring up the discussion, well, what about the ones that transfer out? But we really want to work within our state. So that's where, I had a little, not concern, but just questions, because I want us to capture every student that we get educated, even if they leave our system. So I almost wanted to add something, so maybe next year, those that leave our system go somewhere else, but still get their degree out of state. I just think that that's still important to track. But it was, I think, really good discussion, and Julie and everybody else on the phone, and they are going to start presenting more of the numbers, because once we started hearing the numbers and seeing the numbers, we were like, yeah, that's reachable. That's really reachable.
Thank you. And I should have prefaced our debate with a little bit on process. What I propose is that the chair of each of the committees report back on the result or the recommendation that you're making to the full board, and then other members can comment. And then what we'll do is hear from members of the public, and then we'll take a motion on each one of those goals, because there may be some debate, right? So we'll take them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if that's cool, that's number 1. Any other, go ahead, Board Member Fawn, did you have another comment on number 1?
It speaks to the nuances of the language and all the stuff, but I think it's minor enough that I can, and for the interest of time, not mention it.
Okay. Any other questions on work group 1 and goal number 1? Okay. Let's go to, well, it's actually goal number 1 and 2. Let's talk about goal 3 and Vice President Epstein, decrease units to completion.
So we met, and I want to thank Laura Mattoon and Stacy Fisher for helping us out on this. Joseph Belansky and Jeff Baum were also on the call. We basically agreed to adopt the vision goal as is. Our official resolution was to recommend the board adoption of strategic vision goal number 3, and to request the chancellor to evaluate unit accumulation policies and practices of colleges across the system, review and recommend best practices to support colleges in reaching and exceeding the goal, and provide regular updates to the board on progress toward achieving the goal. I just want to add just a couple of thoughts. I think most of you knew that I thought maybe this goal could be made a little more aggressive. After hearing from everyone, I realized that I may not know enough to make that judgment, and so I think what we all concluded is that there were certain issues that for which there really isn't good data. We don't know for certain which colleges count remedial courses or basic skills courses as for credit or non-credit, and that can certainly affect this measurement. And in a really rough calculation that they tried to do, it showed that, at least from what we could tell from not having the best data, is that it didn't really have an impact. If you counted basic skills courses as for credit or non-credit, you basically had the same average. So that's something I think worth exploring a little bit more to see how that divides among the colleges. There are other potential reasons. One is the availability of the right classes at the right time. It would be interesting to know what part of this problem is associated with that. Another clearly important issue is student uncertainty, how often they might change what they want to study, what they're majoring in. That could reflect a certain amount of counseling need as well. In fact, in my focus group of 2 this morning when we were on our tour, I asked the 2 students who were traveling along with us how long it would taken them or will take them to get through college. They both said 3 years. They were taking more than 60 units, and I asked them, well, why? And one said, well, I've changed my major 3 times, and another said that she had been sick and that she was working on, she couldn't decide which college to apply to, and it may have different. So basically, I know there are a variety of reasons here, and I think it would be really useful, at least to evaluate this goal, is to figure out what % of this problem is associated with each of these things. And I guess just the last one is, we produced a bar chart that had the distribution of the colleges that looks something like this. I don't know if you all got it. But I guess I wouldn't want to have the ones that are at the low end of the bar, meaning the lowest number of units, to rest on their laurels, that they should also continue to look at ways to improve, even if they are doing better than the system as a whole right now. So those are just the things I think that the Chancellor's Office should be looking at as we try and evaluate how aggressive to make this goal and what components are really driving it so that we can address those. And I don't know, Joseph.
Any comments from other members of the work group? Any questions for that work group? Yeah, Member Dalili.
My question, Vice President Epstein, is you're very hesitant on that 79 unit number, as was I. Was there something specific that flipped the switch for you, or was it just a variety of information?
I think it was all of that I just discussed, is that there's great uncertainty as to what's driving it, and until you know that, and there was even uncertainty as to which courses are being counted as for credit or not, and so until you get your arms around that, it's hard to say that this goal is not aggressive enough, I guess.
Questions? Okay, we'll go to, sorry.
One last thing, too, is that if the pathways work as promised, this number should come down pretty dramatically just as a part of that.
Okay, the next group looked at Goal 4, employment in the field of study, and I chaired that group, and I had board members Perry and Haynes on the call with me, and we had terrific staff support from Vice Chancellor Von Ton Quinlivan and some other folks. I think Sandy Fried was on that call as well. So we spent a lot of time talking about how just because somebody's employed in the field in which they studied, it didn't seem very meaningful. Well, okay, it didn't seem very meaningful to me, and it seemed like we wanted to have a better measure of the effectiveness of our program. And we really focused in on wages. And I first want to say that staff did a terrific job with the white paper that looked at some other measurements that had been considered and rejected in the past. And one of them had been increase in wages and earnings. A second had been percentage of folks who make a living wage after they have attended one of our programs and received a certificate or done the skills builder. So we debated that at some length and ended up deciding that we did want to use some measurement of wage earnings. In fine fashion, we delegated that to our fine staff to say, okay, you guys figure out what the best way to measure that is. So where we came back with a recommendation from the Vice Chancellor, and I'll read it for you after a little bit sidebar between the two of us. So we're going to retain the first part of the goal, which is over 5 years, increase the percent of exiting CTE or CE students, career education students, who report being employed in the field of their study from the most recent statewide average of 60% to an improved rate of 69%. And, I'm not going to read the rest of it, and ensure the median earnings gains of exiting students is at least twice the statewide consumer price index. We used CPI as a formula because it's readily available. It'll tell you how much generally wages are going up. Actually, the CPI tends to go up faster than wages generally for the population. Of those of you who have been following wage gains, even when we have historically low unemployment rate, wage gains aren't going up that much for the general population. So CPI gives you a little bit better measurement of what folks out in the workplace are going to be experiencing in terms of how far their paycheck is going to go. So the notion is if somebody comes into one of our classes and does a skills builder or gets a certificate, we would like to make sure that in the time that they'd been there, if they had just stayed in and experienced the CPI increase in their wages, by coming to our system and partaking of our courses, they at least do twice as well as the CPI, right? So if the CPI is running at 3% and you compound that over 3 years that it might take them to get their certificate, we want to see our folks do better than that. So you might be, rather than 9%, you might be at 18%. Am I getting that right, Fawn? The good news is we're pretty much hitting that. But it's one of those things where you can take a measurement that is readily available rather than trying to make gross generalizations across vastly diverse and divergent career education programs that have widely varying statistics. So that was our attempt to do it. It's imperfect, but it does add a measurement related to earnings, which we think is really, really important, right? So with that, I don't know if, well, Board Member Perry was not able to join us today. She wasn't feeling well, but Board Member Haynes, if there's any other comments you want to make on our discussion.
I too would support anything that would allow us to look at wage. It's just really critical. It's not something that we've done as a system, and it's critical to our students to know what that wage will look like for them as they try to figure out what their options are in terms of the choices that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I will say we have Salary Surfer, and that is helpful, but this would go specifically to career education programs and collecting that data. So that's our report. Any questions from other members of the board on our recommendation? So that we are proposing a substantive change, adding that additional measurement for the career education goal. Again, twice the CPI. Our students we're earning twice the CPI when they exit the program. Okay. Then the last committee was looking at goals 5 and 6, to close the equity gaps and close regional gaps, and that was chaired by Board Member Haynes.
So thank you. Let me just say that goals 5 and 6 really deal with equity. And the members on this particular work group were members DeLilly, Estolano, and Shaw, and I want to thank you so much for your input in both of these goals. As a reminder, Goal 5 would reduce the achievement gap for underrepresented groups across measures in Goals 1 through 4 by 40% in 5 years and eliminate it entirely in 10 years. Goal 6 would close regional achievement gaps entirely in 10 years in the 4 measures that are included in all 4 of the previous goals. These goals differ from goals 1 through 4 in several ways. They are value statements. Their purpose is to convey, 1, we recognize these disparities and that these disparities are unacceptable. and we will not leave groups and regions behind as we progress. And I think these are really, really important elements to these particular aspirational goals. These goals force us to stay vigilant in improving outcomes for all Californians. They are really sort of sub-goals under each one of 1, 2, 3, and 4 goals. We have to be mindful that we are moving that needle for both of those two constituency groups. And then, as such, since these are aspirational goals, they're not tied at this point in many ways to research or college performance. And the progress of the other goals should drive the progress of these 2 goals. The work group recommendations, first, the work group agreed to recommend that the board adopt Goal 5 without changes. We had a very long and detailed conversation about Goal 6 because it is the least specific of the goals and has the least specific research underpinnings. We had a deliberative debate in terms of an immediate goal similar to that of Goal 5, which there's a 40% in 5 years and then a complete elimination. So we had that conversation, but we were concerned that this would not be grounded in research. And given that one of the underpinnings of what we're going to be doing is to make certain that we are moving forward relative to data. And since we didn't have that, there was some concern about that. So the work group decided to defer to the board a decision on Goal 6. Let me say that my recommendation would be to adopt Goal 6 as written. The Chancellor's Office and the Success Center are working to collect more information to inform our understanding of the reasons and challenges that underpin the regional disparities and the ways we can support colleges in addressing them. I think this approach is consistent with the overall direction of the vision, which calls on us to foster the use of data, inquiry, evidence, to enable action and thoughtful innovation. The vision also calls for these system-wide goals to be revisited on a regular basis to ensure that they still meet the state's needs. We can revisit Goal 6 as we gain greater understanding of the challenges facing colleges in these regions. I also think it's important to remember that these system-wide goals are intentionally aspirational. It's been stated already what we're really trying to do here. And as such, should be ambitious. They will be difficult to meet, and we know that. And it will be tempting and understandable to want to dig into the metrics to make sure that we can meet the goals, but there is no silver bullet, and there are no sure solutions. We're giving an outline, and what we're saying to the 114 colleges and the 72 districts is, look within you, and let's see if we can move this needle. The goal is for that to be an internal moving of the needle system-wide. These goals are meant to unify and motivate us to aim high, and I'd rather aim high and miss than to be assured that we hit an easy target that doesn't move the needle on student completion. So with that, I'm open. I think we should be open to any questions that you might have.
I was a member of that work group. The one last thing I would note is the reason we poured over this goal so much was because it was vague. And if you really dig into it, it is saying that those regions that experience the greatest gap, the greatest lag behind everybody else, will accelerate their improvement more than everybody else. That's what it's saying. That's very ambitious. So, okay, let's go for it, and we'll measure it. I really struggled with this, Board Member Shaw and I really had a hard time with it, but I think, at this stage, it's hard to pinpoint a more specific, measurable achievable, reasonable, and time-bound goal. I mean, we really are striving for SMART goals. This one's not that smart. I mean, it doesn't meet those, elements of a SMART goal, but we are acknowledging, as Pam said, it's aspirational. We're trying to say that those regions that face the biggest achievement gaps are going to come up fast because they need to, in order for us to close them. So it just means we're going to really need to gather data about what's holding them back, and then I think have that reflected in our budget requests so that when we know, for example, there's certain rural areas may be facing particular barriers and the data proves that out, that's when we ask the legislature to focus resources for those colleges. But we have to be intentional about it because this is a super ambitious goal. It's probably the hardest one, frankly, and it's really big. So that's the last thing I'll say on that.
So let me just add a couple of things. One, when the question was asked, how long will it take for us to have some initial research, we were told 1 year. We're going to hold staff to that. We're going to try to hold staff to that.
Right over there.
Right there.
And then the other is that we're not talking about one homogeneous underserved region. We're talking about multiple regions. And so we really, and while poverty has different impacts, and those different impacts require different approaches. And so, for example, gaps in the north may relate to challenges faced by very rural areas, but some may be infrastructure and physical access to colleges. In other regions, the challenges may stem from the lack of college-going culture. In other regions, it could suffer from just economic dislocation. And so for each of those, you really do have to know what the problem is, because we do not want to be trying to solve the wrong problem. The other is that we don't know, as I said, what these disparities are in each region, and so this is one about understanding what they are, and then really making certain that we're working with those underserved regions in a way that's helpful for them to move the needle.
Any questions on that report? Board Member Shaw, did you want to add anything? Okay. Okay, if we don't have any questions, why don't we move on to public comment, and then we'll act on each of the 4 recommendations.
First up is Dr. Elena Macias and Adam Wetzman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I speak on behalf of adult school GED recipients. In 2001, California established its first tuition equity law that benefits undocumented students who meet its requirements of 3 years of high school attendance and a high school diploma in order to qualify for in-state tuition. Over the years, we learned that students on an accelerated pace, as well as adult school graduates, often complete the requirements in less than 3 years. By 2015, California modified AB 540 with the passage of AB 2000 to allow students who finish high school in less than 3 years to use seed time in K through 8th grades to meet that requirement. However, the California Community College Office of the Chancellor determined that AB 2000 does not include adult GED recipients and limited its application only to the traditional high school graduate. This is unacceptable. It denies an access point for underserved, low-income, undocumented members of our community to in-state tuition fees and access to the California DREAM Act, which is the only state financial aid available to them. Secondly, excluding GED recipients is inconsistent with your system's goals for meeting California's needs by 2022 in several ways. Namely, a segment of the population will be excluded from your goals of increasing access to skills, degrees, credentials, certificates, as well as transfer, goals which you are considering today in your agenda item, Vision for Success. Thirdly, It is antithetical to your own resolution number 2017-01 issued just 8 months ago, where the board resolved to, quote, encourage all your local community college districts to ensure that all students have an opportunity to receive an education in the community college system, unquote. Fourthly, it is inconsistent with the goals of the community colleges to fulfill the need for equitable implementation. The Intersegmental Coordinating Committee, of which the community college is a member, has long committed to consistency in applications across systems. The California State University System has already issued a coded memorandum, ASA 2016-06, clarifying to its 21 campuses that AB 540, as modified by AB 2000, includes all California high schools, including continuation and adult school. I urge you to reconsider the Office of the Chancellor's rules and regulations for AB 2000 so that its implementation is consistent across segments and reflects a position that applies as much to a gifted and talented undocumented youth who completes an accelerated high school program as it does to a GED recipient.
At the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, we recognize the significance of these goals and certainly acknowledge their importance. A couple of suggestions. First, you need to have significant faculty input. We are the ones who have the students sitting in our classrooms. We're the ones who see these students in our counseling offices and provide those student services to those students. So we're the ones who can help with achieving those or reducing those equity gaps, with reducing the time to degree, with increasing transfer rates. So ask us, ask the teachers. We're willing to help. We think these are great goals, and you're going to need our help to do this, and we're willing to provide that help. Second, we need to have a genuine plan beyond an annual BCP request to achieve the needed faculty infrastructure to move the needle on all of these goals. So we need more full-time faculty. We need to increase the professionalization of part-time faculty. My dean tells me she has this stream of students coming in every single day looking for faculty who don't have office hours, who don't have offices. We need to ensure that those part-time faculty can provide significant dedication to the students and that we have that infrastructure in place. We can do this, but we need to have a couple of things moving forward in order to achieve these goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Fabio Gonzalez and Linda Vasquez.
Good afternoon, board members, President Estolano, Chancellor Oakley. Thank you for the shout out earlier today. My name is Linda Vasquez, and I'm the Regional Affairs Director with the Campaign for College Opportunity. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but I did provide copies of a report of which I'm commenting on today. Last Tuesday, we released our latest report, and it's titled The Transfer Maze, the High Cost to Students and the State of California. As you know, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, California is not on track to meet workforce demands, with projections that will be short approximately 1.1 bachelor degrees short by 2025. A strong community college transfer system is critical not just for the employers who need educated workers, but also for the students who are seeking a clear and affordable path to earning their bachelor's degree. This is why ambitious goals like those laid out in your vision for success are so crucial. The reality is, despite that a majority of community college students seeking to transfer, only 4% do so after 2 years, 25% after 4 years, and 38% after 6 years. The transfer maze is truly hurting our students, and at first, it's costly, as is the case made out in a report, costing some community college transfer students anywhere between $36,000 to $38,000 more to earn a bachelor's degree than a student who starts at a four-year university. And this is due to a number of reasons, but also because of cost of living and time to degree. Second, community college students essentially have to choose between applying to the CSU or UC because of differing admissions requirements. In contrast, high school students can take A to G and have an equal shot at both systems. To ensure a clear pathway for transfer, we offer a few recommendations on our report, and as you have outlined in your strategic goals, increasing the number of annual transfers to the CSU and UC by 35% cannot be done without the partnership of the CSU and UC. Board Member Fan, you alluded to this earlier in your comments. In 2016, associate degrees for transfer earners represented 31% of the total CSU transfers. A bright spot in the maze continues to be the ADT pathway. 48% of students with an ADT degree graduate within 2 years from the CSU with their bachelor's degree, compared to only 27% for traditional transfer students. We urge you to continue the work to strengthen the associate degree for transfer pathway so that it becomes a preferred method of transfer for California's community college students. We ask you to develop and scale well-defined structures in admissions, assessment, placement, curricula, and advising to enable students to plan a course of study that can help fulfill the transfer promise. And I know that a lot of these building blocks are included in your goals. We also offer ourselves as continued partners in this important work. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, Fabio Gonzalez with the EOP-NS Association. I was trying to find a time where I actually plug myself in because there's 3 items on the agenda that are extremely dear to us. But I'm gonna try my best with this one. Good afternoon, honorable board members, colleagues, partners, President Estolano and Chancellor Ortiz. We would like to go on record saying that we were also concerned about this vision and how it will actually impact programs like EOP-NS that are in the field, that are providing the services, that are actually working day in, day out with our students. But we were happy to meet with Chancellor Ortiz Oakley in sharing the new systems vision with us and how we're looking forward to working with you on this. It is some certain goals that we believe is gonna take a lot of work, a lot of support, a lot of communication on working together and see how we can do this. I think that vision is in line with what EOP-NS does. EOP-NS intersects and plays a critical role within the guided pathway vision, and hearing this from Chancellor was pretty reassuring. We applaud your efforts to continue advocating for the EOP-NS resources, as I was going to mention in the budget area, where we're actually looking into partnering with you and continue advocating for our most vulnerable students. Of course, I cannot leave this desk right here without telling you, as an undocumented student myself, that I cannot be so proud to stay in front of this group, staying shoulder to shoulder with you, because history will look back at this on how you took a bold position and set the standard of leadership to make sure our DACA students, our undocumented student community as a whole, feels protected and that you have their back. That is critical. We're just passing by in this world, but what you're doing as actions will speak louder than anything else. We also want to extend an invitation to you to attend our conference that is coming up here next door, Newport Beach, and we're going to have our celebration, but we're also going to be having over 1,000 faculty, staff, administrators, and students come join us for our 48th annual conference, and you're more than open to come. Most of you, some of you have attended, and we're opening this invitation for all of you. President Stolano, maybe you can join us as well. It will be November 7th through the 9th, right next door, Newport Beach, and we're hoping that you can join us. Once again, I want to be brief and just say that EOP-NS stands with you as a community in serving our students. But as we move forward with this vision, we have to be cautious and we have to collaborate and work together to make sure that there's no unintended consequence. And if there are, then let's discuss them and work together to see how we can minimize that damage. Thank you.
Julie Bruno.
Good afternoon, board members. I always enjoy following Fabio. It works really well, and my other colleagues, Adam Wetzman. You know that we are supportive of, I love that Member Haynes called these intentionally aspirational, because I think that's exactly what they are. We're very much looking forward to working with you all in implementing these, and it will be challenging. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and I think Fabio sort of really brought it into focus by saying that we have to be very careful when we look at these goals, when we implement these goals. We have to make sure that there aren't unintentional consequences to our students or to our colleges or to our programs. So we do have a lot of work. The Academic Senate very much is looking forward to bringing faculty together to get some of the work done, to harness the expertise that our faculty bring to accomplish the goal, and to leverage good work that the faculty have already started, like our EOP&S colleagues. They do phenomenal work with our students, so we want to make sure that we're using all of those resources. Providing professional development is going to be critical, as well as really establishing the metrics that we will be judging ourselves, evaluating ourselves by. So we look forward to working with you on these, and we just hope that you will call on us to bring the faculty together and have their expertise in every step of the way, because we want to make sure that we've got it. We do it well. We do it well for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment. Great. So before we take votes, I do want to shout out to the Academic Senate. I know they participated actively. I had 3 people from the Academic Senate sitting in my office for the call. It was terrific, and certainly participated in the work group on equity. So we really appreciated you all taking the time to participate in each of these work groups. Okay, at this point, what I'd like to do procedurally is just have a vote on each of the recommendations. Board Member Fawn, did you want to make a?
Yeah, I'd be happy to make a motion for adoption of goals 1 and 2, but may I make 2 observations prior to making the motion? It was mentioned in our work group that in our drive to increase success rate in terms of numbers, we must not compromise rigor.
Right.
The focus must also be on student learning, how much students actually learn in the classroom. So the credentials, the certificates, the degrees that we offer to our students must, at the end of the day, represent the skills and the knowledge that those certificates and degrees hold. So in sum, we must not compromise rigor, and this is a point where faculty can be of help to working with the folks in the field or the chancellor's office, and we cannot stress that enough.
Great,
That's my
thank you.
first observation, and the second is inspired by your suggestion to develop work groups. This strategic vision, in my view, in the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, the board and the chancellor will be held responsible for this. And because of the importance of this document and the implementation of it, I surmise and just wonder aloud that moving forward, whether it makes sense for our board to perhaps create a working group, if you will, that would, on occasion, work with the chancellor's office to see where we are and all the stuff, because the last thing we want to do is 12 months or 15 months from now, oh, can we get a report? And in that way, if that's the case, then we probably can't see exactly how things are going. So my suggestion to you board members here is, I don't know if it makes sense for us to create a small working group of board members that would periodically check in with the chancellor and his staff on this. So it's just a thought. Those are my two observations, and I will make the motion for us to adopt goals 1 and 2 as stated.
Okay, so let's do this procedurally. I'm not hearing a lot of dissent in any, or sensing a lot of dissent or questioning about some of the recommendations. It looks like, with the exception of the 4th goal, where we tweaked the language by adding another measure related to earnings and comparing it to the doubling to being twice the consumer price index growth. If it's okay with the board, why don't we vote on all of these at once, if there's no objection to that? So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the recommendations of the work group to adopt the strategic vision as modified by those recommendations. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No, it was Alex.
No, he's not a board member.
It has to be Amon. Amon, you want a second? Sorry, Alex, you're not voting yes just yet. Just knock them off and you'll be the voting member. Okay. So I have a second by Board Member DeLilly. Yes, Board Member Avalos.
Since we're done with the motion, we've already voted, so good.
Yeah.
No.
I do want to go back to Ms. Macias.
But we haven't voted yet.
Okay.
Okay. That's okay. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The strategic vision, as moderately tweaked, has been approved. Those goals. Okay. Let's take up Board Member Avalos' question.
I do want to go back to Ms. Macias's document that she sent
Sure.
over. I think there's something we should discuss. Obviously not at this meeting, but we should probably put it into a future meeting. We can talk about the fact that we are excluding adult student GED recipients in our analysis of free tuition, part of the program. So can we do that at a future meeting? Is that something we can discuss?
Well, what I would recommend is just that the Chancellor's Office have a chance to respond. We can send that response to Board President Estolano. If there's a need to further agendize it, we'd be happy to.
Yeah,
We
because
can circulate that around, Board Member
I do
Avalos.
see that
Yeah.
the CSU has already made an amendment, and I just want to make sure, I want to know why they did it, and we're not thinking about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
we did not have this ahead of the meeting, so we don't have a
Perfect.
response for you
Great.
right now, but
Great.
we're happy to provide a
Thanks.
response.
great. Okay. Board Member Fawn, Board Member DeLilly.
Quick question. Do we have
Yeah.
this on the docket for annually September meetings, or are we going to bring this back every 6 months? Or
So this is such an excellent segue into the next item. So I was going to take up your suggestion, Board Member Fawn, by saying, let's hold that suggestion until we have a report on the implementation of the strategic vision, which is our next agenda item. We're going to move that up. That's item 4.2. This is the agenda where we just bop around from place to place, taking things randomly and seemingly out of order. We did take the vote. Yeah, we're good to go. Okay. Okay. Deputy Chancellor.
All right, it is a terrific segue there. So in this item, we are going to provide an update on where we're at in terms of crafting an action plan to accomplish these ambitious goals, and also discuss a framework for keeping the board apprised of our progress. And so Sandy Freed is going to join me. I'm going to lead off with the initial piece of this, and then she's going to step through the reporting framework. So I would emphasize that the work ahead is huge. These are very, very bold goals that you've adopted, and as we proceed with this work, it's going to take a bold action plan in order to carry that out. And we're at the early stages of putting that together, and as we proceed with this, it's we want to bring back an action plan to you as we craft it, but that's not this presentation today. Today is just more of a preliminary update of where we're at. I think one of the things that gives me confidence that we'll be able to move forward and achieve these bold goals that you've laid out is that we're building off a foundation. We're building off of the success work that's occurred under the board's leadership with the Student Success Task Force and the various elements that were in that previous action plan. I think that lays a foundation for this next phase of work. I would say, I think that while the Student Success Task Force built some great building blocks across our system, and you can look at the Student Equity Program, the Student Success and Support Program, some of the system-wide infrastructures, some of the transformational work around ADTs with the CSU system or around our basic skills programs. So far, we haven't, as a system, moved the needle very much at all. And that's this next phase of work that we're very keyed in on. And so within the Chancellor's Office and with our partners in the Success Center, we're having this conversation about what are those elements that we need to build into this action plan to achieve this significant increases in student success and the closing of achievement gaps that you've just spent some time discussing. And so, again, we're in the process of developing that action plan. There are a few components that are in our minds, in terms of the strategic vision document. Highlighted a few action items that are likely to make it into the action plan. But beyond that, the strategic vision was fundamentally about setting the goals. It intentionally did not get into the how, into the detail. And that's the work that's been tasked to the Chancellor and the Chancellor's Office to flesh that out. But on page 68 of your agenda are some of those high-yield strategies that we've been working on and discussing. Several of these are noted in the strategic vision document, and some of them are not. So the purpose of this presentation is, again, to give you an indication and an update on where we're at in our thinking, but this isn't a final product. Some of the key elements are obviously guided pathways. That's going to be the umbrella initiative that ties everything together. The strategic vision highlighted that, and much of the work in the Chancellor's Office over the last several months has gone into laying the groundwork for the system-wide rollout of guided pathways. So that's one element. It shouldn't surprise you that you're going to be hearing a lot more about. A second area is in developmental education reform. So this is deeper work in improving our basic skills programs, and in particular, some of the features of that we're keying in on are the scaling up of improved multiple measures assessment and placement strategies that do a better job of getting students into a course that they're prepared for. And at your board retreat, you heard some update on the data and got an indication of how that's been shown to drive major increases in student performance and how it's worked to close achievement gaps at some of our campuses. So we have great hope that that can be an effective part of our overall strategy. On transfer reforms, there's continued improvements within the associate degrees for transfer, both with CSU and then also using those degrees as a foundation for improved transfer with UC as well. Another element is reducing barriers and reporting requirements. There'll be many features to this work. We're partnering with the Success Center, their policy shop, to strategize on some particular changes in our rules and regulations to streamline our processes. But this work will also it'll build off the foundation that we've been working on for the last 12 to 18 months around program integration. So the work around SSSP, student equity, and basic skills, bringing those programs together so that from the campus level, it's easier to engage in integrated planning. It's easier to develop an integrated strategy to help students achieve their educational objectives. And then lastly, data reporting. We've highlighted in our internal conversations the need to have conversations around the various data systems and accountability systems that exist in the California community colleges. Over the last decade or so, we've really had this proliferation of different data systems, not only the scorecard, but we've got the launch board, we've got the IEPI indicators that the board receives regular updates on, They're the key performance indicators that are part of the guided pathways conversation. So there's really this, again, a proliferation of different data sets and different data systems. And we're excited about rolling up our sleeves and digging into that and trying to rationalize those systems so it's clear what data we want to focus on as a system. And to the extent that we have multiple data or accountability models operating, we need to be really clear on what function each of them is serving. We don't want repetitive or redundant data systems that lead to confusion. We'd rather focus on fewer data elements that are really important. And again, to the extent that we have differences across our different reporting systems, there needs to be a clear purpose for that. And then lastly on that, part of our strategy around data reporting and utilization is continuing to promote efforts across the system to increase the use of data in driving decision making at both at the system level and at the campus level. We feel that there's room to improve that kind of data literacy and the kind of really embedding that again a culture of using data to drive programmatic decisions that can has potential to help us do a better job in the Chancellor's office, but also will support our colleges in operating more effective programs. And so around that, there's a range of professional development, training, and tools that we're likely to pursue. So that's kind of again, intended to be very broad brushstrokes of some of the types of strategies that we envision being part of that action plan. We wanted to give you a sense of the kinds of discussions that are playing out in the Chancellor's office and with the Success Center. We will be coming back to you at a subsequent board meeting with a more of a fleshed out action plan, but we wanted to just keep you apprised of our progress to date. So I want to turn it over to Sandy to talk a little bit about what we've discussed as some strategies and some a framework for keeping the board informed about this work, about progress towards achieving the goals that you were just discussing. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Sandy.
Thank you, Eric. So we have a small work group of experts that are working on developing metrics that will help us measure progress towards the goals. We'll be reporting those metrics and our progress annually in the State of the System report. We plan on repurposing that as the major vehicle to communicate with you and the public about how we're doing. And we envision this being a very open, rigorously transparent discussion of where we're succeeding and where we need to work harder. In addition, coming before the board will be policy changes that we'll be implementing as part of the strategic vision effort, as well as just global activities that we're completing. Probably every 6 months we'll be able to have a report for you as to the activities that have been completed, some of the things that Eric just mentioned. And then, as I said, the data will be at least annually, where we'll have a very transparent conversation about where we are and how we're measuring where we are.
If I could just add to that, I think the key to this is identifying the key metrics, because these goals are very broad and very ambitious. We could spend the entire day going through all the different points and elements of these goals. So we need to pick very strategic key indicators that give us a firm idea about the progress that we're making. And we do plan on coming back at least every 6 months on the progress. One thing we have to recognize is that the data and the changes in the overall rates will take time to see in the data. So we'll just caution you that you're not going to see major changes in the data in 6 months. That's going to take us time, and that's going to be part of the commitment that the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors needs to make to the strategic vision, that this is a 5 to 10 year horizon to see the kinds of changes that we're hoping to see.
Okay, Board Member Belansky.
Just want to, and I'm sure you know about this, but I want to make a comment with regard to the transfer reforms, that we know the UC system has developed the 21 career or transfer pathways. They now have a website that lists all 114 colleges and the 21 majors for each college and what courses are considered articulated.
We want more than that. Member Belinsky.
Yeah, but it's a big help.
Yes, it is.
The white ones.
Comments? Board Member Baum.
Only in just, and Deputy Chancellor Skinner's been integral. You know, in my experience, adopting kind of long-standing changes has required kind of consistent reporting back to every board meeting. I think about the ADT system where you come back. Is that factored into all of this, where we're going to pick, and you probably already referenced this, a focused number of reports that we'll get almost every meeting, so that we keep the pedal on the accelerator, the foot on the accelerator to achieve that type of consistent response, and that the system knows we're going to be looking at progress toward each of these at each of these meetings.
I think what we have in mind and what we're presenting today is an idea of a twice annual update against that action plan. But I would say it's all really up to you, you guys, to decide what would be effective. That might be an easier conversation to have, more meaningful if once you have an action plan in front of you. You could look at it concretely and decide, are those elements that you would want to hear about every other month? I would tell you, I think from my perspective, one of the valuable elements of having the action plan is that it will allow us to, in a more meaningful way, I think, at every board meeting, there's business coming to you, whether it's in contracts and grants or a particular initiative that you're getting an update on. And for us to be able to draw a line and link that back to the strategic vision, I think is useful. I would think would be useful to you as a board. It's definitely useful in terms of guiding our work in the Chancellor's office to make sure that we're truly aligning our efforts with that strategic vision.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Okay, we're going to do a little time check. We're at 4:40. We have quite a bit of business before us. We're just looking at the comment cards. We know we have some items, just general public comment, that we need to take. We also have, I think, 9 cards for the budget item, on the budget. And I suspect that the folks that are here for the budget we're not planning to be here tomorrow. Am I correct? So I want to ask the board, I'd like to get through the budget. I'd hope to get through the foundation and take public comment. That might take us past 5. It'll likely take us past 5. Are you guys okay with that? On this side too? Okay, then let's do it. Let's do the budget. Vice Chancellor, soon to be something else, Rodriguez.
Yes, and as Vice Chancellor Rodriguez comes up, I think what the board will find useful is the move to link the budget request with the strategic vision goals. So that is, I think, a great byproduct of this effort and should provide some clarity going forward how the budget asks that we're making relate to moving the strategic vision forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chancellor Rodriguez and Vice Chancellor Mattoon.
And I'm going to turn it over to Vice Chancellor Mattoon to start out and introduce the item, and then we'll kind of share this together.
Sure. In addition to aligning this document to the Vision for Success, you'll notice that we made another fairly significant change. In the past, we've brought to this board legislative proposals and budget proposals separately. The reality is that the budget and policy go hand in hand in the legislature, particularly under this governor. So this year we decided that we would bring to you one request that would include both our budget requests as well as the statutory changes we think are necessary to implement those budget changes. Due to the timing of the Vision for Success, we had a bit of a truncated process for consultation this year. In years past, what we would do is bring our request to Consultation Council before it comes to the board. Unfortunately, with Consultation Council not meeting in August, we had a special meeting where Vice Chancellor Rodriguez and I invited the members of Consultation Council as well as additional internal and external stakeholders to come and participate in a conversation about the system's budget priorities. The feedback provided at that meeting, which took place on August 21st, was incorporated into this document, and many of the recommendations from that meeting are included in the request coming before you today.
So we'll kind of go through each one of these requests one by one, and given the hour, we'll try to make it fairly brief, and we'll open it up for questions after that. So the first one, we have the main point of this budget request, or the main splash in this budget request, is a continued investment in base increase. Keep in mind, during the recession, we lost about $1 billion of purchasing power. With the PERS and STRS rates, we received over 500 million of those, but there's also a total of 900 million, so we're still $400 million short. These resources not only support our ability to attract and retain talent, but also to develop locally implemented programs to best serve our students. The next one is a placeholder item for the online education proposal requested by the governor. Vice Chancellor Tom Quinlivan will talk a little bit more about that, and that'll be back at the board in November. The next two are full-time faculty hiring and part-time faculty support. We requested $75 million for full-time faculty. If you remember, 2 years ago, we received $62 million in the budget. So this is requesting another addition to that, but a little bit more. And also $25 million for part-time faculty support. This last year's budget, we received $5 million. Given the level of, we're not only trying to increase the percent of faculty that are providing instruction, full-time faculty that are providing instruction, but also recognizing that until we get to that 75% goal, there's going to be substantial part-time faculty in our system, and let's find ways to better support them.
The next request is to increase the amount of CalGRAT dollars coming to community college students. We've talked before about how we serve 2/3 of the student population, but we only receive about 6% of the total CalGRAT dollars coming into our system. It's because a lot of our students are not traditional age, right out of high school students that would qualify for a CalGRAT entitlement, and about 300,000 qualified applicants are competing for about 25,000 competitive Cal Grants. So the request is twofold: to increase the number of students who would be eligible for an entitlement, as well as to increase the number of competitive Cal Grants that would be available to our students. The next request would be an additional round of basic skills transformation grants. We funded the first round of transformation grants 2 years ago in the budget. In addition, we increased funding for the Basic Skills Initiative. This would be to request an additional one-time allotment of $25 million to invest in the highest impact practices based on what we learned from the first round of transformation grants.
The next request is to provide additional resources for professional development. This would be professional development for both faculty and staff at our institutions. The next request would be to provide staffing and professional development for the Chancellor's office. So we received 6 additional positions this year and resources to fill a vacant executive level position this year. But I think given our staffing levels, the amount of responsibility we're trying to have, and the shift in focus from compliance to technical assistance, we're going to need both resources and professional development to bring the staff we currently have along in that process.
The next request, outlined under goal number 4, would be to establish a data sharing agreement that would allow our system to track adult education learners. Ideally, what we would be able to do here is to track students who come through our system, as well as students under the Adult Ed Block Grant that maybe don't touch our system, to look at the wage gains and outcomes of those student populations.
The next is a concept of a request. So this is the integration. This piggybacks and furthers the work that we've done on Integration 1.0. That's the Basic Skills Initiative, the Student Success and Support Program, and the Student Equity Plan. The Integration 1.0, that project essentially removed the bulk of the administrative guidelines that we placed on the colleges. This would be a more broader look at how we can ensure those programs are working effectively to onboard our students and make sure they get on a path towards completing their educational goals. $5 million in addition to the faculty support also that we have in the budget of about $100 million. This would be an increase to ensure that the faculty that we are hiring are brought in with the resources to best support a diversified faculty pool.
The final request is $25 million ongoing funding to support a California statewide college promise framework. The idea here would be that this pot of money would be available to colleges who choose to participate in a College Promise framework and meet specified outline requirements for doing so, and that those outline requirements would be very focused on the aspects of a promise that we know lead to student success. Multiple measures, outreach to high schools, putting students on a guided pathway.
With that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, members of the board, first of all, I'll just say, this is a great document. I said this to the chancellor in sidebar, but I love the way it's organized. I love how you track it to the vision. It's great, and I loved your tag team. I felt like I was watching a network show. So, any questions from the members of the Board of Governors? Yes, Board Member Haynes.
So with the adult education data sharing agreement, so adult ed and the regions that are embedded within the adult ed, do they align in any kind of way with the workforce and economic development that we're also doing? And will that present a problem when we start to try to work with adult ed regional issues? I don't know if I'm...
The larger goal is to align these regions to serve the needs of the student populations, and this request really is specific to how we track data so that we can track for those regions, both the students that end up in our system as well as those that stay in the adult education system under the K-12 side. And then jointly, our two segments would come together to evaluate those outcomes and figure out where the gaps are and then work together to fill them programmatically.
Board Member DeLilly.
Thank you so much for the report. I too enjoyed the entertainment value in the summary. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last year's budget, our 17-18, was almost double the request of 382, including line items with mental health, veterans, VRCs, and campus safety. Is there a reason why those are left off on this year's?
Yeah, so two reasons. One, we scaled back the approach because we wanted to, sometimes when we have so many priorities, we can get lost in what our real priorities are. And now that the board has a new vision for success, a statement where you're clearly focusing on 6 key goals, we felt it made sense to focus our ask as well, the board's ask as well. The second reason why we didn't include some of those other requests that were in from last year is we haven't implemented the programs yet. And so it would be premature for us to say we need additional anything if we haven't implemented the money that's already been given. After we roll out the money this year, develop the programmatic guidance and the allocations to the colleges, and we see the success that I think we're envisioning we'll have with those resources, then at that point, it makes the case a little bit easier to go across the street to the legislature and say, look what we've done with X, give us twice as much, or help augment that as well. So those are the reasons why.
Have Board Member Sumner, then Belansky, followed by Fawn.
Fishtail into what he was talking about. And that's one of my concerns is you don't see the word veteran in here, you don't see the word special needs, you don't see the words foster youth, you don't see any of that in there. And that really bothers me. I understand where we went, but the board did approve $30 million for veterans going forward. So going forward, new budget, I understand because we sort of put it in late. Then I really think we need to know what every college campus spends on a VRC and where they pull their money. Is it general? Is it whatever? Because some get grants, some don't. If we don't say this is our budget and it's going to be more than we can even imagine how much we're putting that the college campuses are grants. Because I've had multiple people within the last couple of weeks come up to me and say, if our grant money goes away, our doors are going to close. We have no money. So I think as a board, we have failed the veterans by not having something in here because we pull from different categories and every college treats it differently. Not every college is the same, and I just think we need to pull better because we now have more veterans deploying. They just sent out, I was just talking to Nancy Montgomery, we just recently had 2,200 veterans get sent out, and we need to do better for not only, or just all of our colleges.
Have Member Belansky, followed by Member Fawn.
I just want to call out things that I find important and valuable, and just to say them again. I think trying to add an additional 800 additional full-time faculty to the system is extremely important because we know that full-time faculty then have the time to make the commitment to our students. But I also find that important that we come up with better ways to support the part-time faculty. I didn't realize that the Cal grants only covered 6% of funding for our students, we need to get more of that for our students. And the last thing is I totally agree with the professional development. We need more funding to provide professional development for the people that work in our community colleges.
Board Member Fawn.
So just for my education, the budget request is typical in which you do every year to the state legislature. And in this year, because of our strategic vision, you overlay the 6 goals or distribute the 6 goals amongst the budget categories. Is that what I'm seeing?
More or less, I think what we try to do is, it's kind of opposite, but it gets to the same place. What we try to do is look at the 6 goals and say, what investments could we make to best further those 6 goals? Now, in any one of these goals, EEO might funding for EEO might be specific to reducing equity gaps, but I'm thinking that that's going to also help improve overall achievement, lower degree or lower credit accumulation. So most of these goals can cross many, if not all of them, but we try to organize it in a way that would strategically drive the goals that you're setting for.
So that's kind of my point. For example, in goal number 2, when we try to increase students transfer to UC and all the stuff, yet we're hiring more faculty, which I think in part helps, but it's about systems aligning.
Yeah.
It's about us going to CESU and UC and talking to them, how can we change things? And while hiring faculty with the dollars committed there is the step in the right direction, it may not solve the whole problem if that reach out to the CSU and UC is not somehow funded or is not captured. So that's my observation.
Board Member Fawn, this budget request doesn't reflect all the activities of the Chancellor's office, and you're right. For many of these, it's going to require a certain amount of advocacy on my part or my staff's part. So to answer your question, yes. But in this budget request, if we're asking the legislature for money, we want to make sure that your priorities in the goals that you've adopted are reflected in the resources that we're asking for. But certainly, beyond this budget request, there are a myriad of activities that will have to happen to make these goals come to fruition.
Member Avalos.
Thank you. So I just have a couple questions, but just as a point of clarification, when I look at the summary report on this chart here, this table, on the integration of student support services, can you talk about that a little more? And while there's no money reflected there, so I don't know why it's part of the budget, I guess. And then the next piece was a statutory change. So can you highlight that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what the idea there was that about a year ago or so, we started working on how we could better get the 3 programs that are primarily servicing the front end, the onboarding of our students. You know, when the legislature and the governor provided us these resources, which we've advocated for, they solved them in a siloed approach, which at the time made a ton of sense. This board, the board makeup at the time said, we have this new student success initiative. We're going to revamp how we do matriculation. We want a substantial investment in student success and support program. And then the next year, the idea that we needed to have specific funding to support the equity agenda was done. And then in last year's budget, we received additional resources for the basic skills program, more than doubling in what the program was. And so what we're trying to do, what we've done with the first pass of integration is to say, let's recognize that these resources are essentially helping the onboarding and the getting these students towards their educational goal on the front end. Let's try to remove some of the barriers to ensure that those 3 programs are working well together. We're not asking for additional money on this program because the colleges are still, at least in some part, digesting these resources. We've received a substantial amount of resources in categorical programs over the past few years. What we think we're hearing a lot of is that the reporting requirements and the restrictive way in which they're able to be used is preventing better integration. And so what we're saying is, let's take a look at, if we were to take a look at, we have that same amount of money, but look at it with new eyes and say, how could we best, if the state was going to give us this money to onboard our students, how could we best structure those programs to meet the needs of those students?
Okay, I think Board Member Epstein.
Is this the last time you're going to testify before us, Vice Chancellor Rodriguez?
Unfortunately, yes.
Because, you know, it seems to me like you've had one of the easiest jobs in the entire administration. You know, you get to dole out all this money, yet I hear lots of complaints from around this table of people who aren't happy with the outcome. I've got 9 comments here, and you know that they're not going to be happy. I mean, why can't you just give everything to everybody?
I've really appreciated reporting to this board, and it's been a pleasure. I think, you know, as I was telling the president earlier, it's as a taxpayer, I feel better the way you guys question me, and it's made me better at my job. So I've appreciated it. I don't take any of the criticism personally. I've really enjoyed reporting to this board. Thank you.
Well, I've heard also that you're really tired of working with the legislature and the Department of Finance, and that, and this board, and that you'd be much happier reporting to Pam Haynes' board, where you know that you're going to be treated nicer. Is that correct?
That is not correct. I mean, I've been really fortunate to have had great relationships with the Department of Finance, and they said I mean,
sound like a politician now.
It's been fun.
Confirm or deny.
But I am looking forward to reporting to Pam and the rest of the Los Rios board.
No further questions, Madam President.
You will be missed. I'm glad I got Tom Getty to sweat. Okay, let's go with public comment. I think we have 9 speaker cards.
Yeah, we'll call them up in threes. Angel Guerrero, Ezekiel Hall, and Nancy Montgomery.
Just to let you know, some of those names had to leave. They had to go back to class,
Oh.
so they won't be here. They were our veterans. I am Nancy Montgomery. Good evening. I am from Irvine Valley College. I am the director of the Veterans Center and the Health Center there. I also we led at Irvine Valley College the funding issue here to get the funding for the VRCs. I do want to start off with first thanking this Board of Governors and the Chancellor for supporting our initiative to get veteran funding. A big thank you to Nancy Sumner, who's been outspoken and really, really beneficial to our cause, and to Mario Rodriguez for him supporting us also there. Today I come to you to ask you that I know the funding is there. I'd like to ask that we get these stakeholders meetings and all of these guidance and criteria and guidelines developed as soon as possible so that we can get the funding. There's not a week that goes by that I don't get emails or calls from all types of college centers that are just struggling. They can't make that. We did a research project this summer. We surveyed 94 of the 114 colleges and found that I would say almost all of them, there's just still a handful that have the services that we do at Irvine, and they really need to have those services. I was sharing with Nancy Sumner, today 28 soldiers deployed to Afghanistan from the 40th Infantry Division. There's going to be more. This war is not ending. Our soldiers, our Marines, our Navy, everybody's deploying out here. What happens, though, is they come back to us. The community college is where they come back. They are a very vulnerable group. Definitely Pathways, I love the program. They're not going to be in those programs very well because they need specific support services. We can provide that if we put those services, definite services and quality services in these VRCs that offer specific tutoring services because they test in such low remedial areas. We can offer it if we address their physical and their mental health concerns so that they can be supported. They're not so, remember their GI benefits cover those first 36 months. So I mean, they're not worried about getting the funding there, and they also use their GI benefits and they get a stipend every month, a board and housing benefit. The problem is that if we don't supply those support services, they are not going to acclimate and they are not going to graduate. I've seen this happen. I was sharing with Nancy, every couple of years we get in new military coming back, new veterans coming back that are recently discharged. It's almost like we start all over again.
We develop this great group, we keep them persisting, we get them graduating, we build their GPAs, we get their self-esteem, their mental health in order. They leave us and go on, and a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, they don't want to leave us. I have to say, you need to go. You need to go and spread your wings. But they feel comfortable, but they don't want to move on because they found that comfortability there. The problem is that what we're failing them in is not getting the support systems moving in our colleges. We are their first access. We need to build these centers. My ask to you today is get this funding moving, get it distributed, and so that we can help our veterans out there. Allow some of us to be on those committees. Make sure that you have a great positive liaison in the chancellor's office that's going to be beneficial to growing these centers, and make sure that they're well quality, that they know what's going on out there, and that they're an advocate for what we're doing. So I ask that today, and I thank you very much again for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Call up three more: Linda Fantanella, Arlen Elserode, and Eric Garcia.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Fontanella, and I am the Vice President for Student Services at Irvine Valley College. I'm also this year serving the pleasure of being the Chief Student Service Officer for the Chief Student Service Officers Association. On behalf of my family at Irvine Valley College and the students and the Chief Student Service Officers, I would like to thank you for all the support that you have provided to us over the last few years. I come in front of you today to say that the student success and support funding, as well as the student equity funding and the basic skills funding, has made it very, very possible for us to create many initiatives that we have now started at the college, and we continue to serve our students really well. Up until this point, without the student equity funds, we did not have the resources to start conversations and change the culture at our colleges and talk about the fact that every student deserves to have an education. That was not possible. But when the student equity money came along, there was an interest in having those conversations, and now there is an interest in developing initiatives for those programs. As a veteran of the Vietnam War, and Nancy and I have had many conversations about this, when I left the Air Force, there was no Veterans Resource Center. I did not have a veterans counselor. There was no student equity plans, and there was no one on that college to help me figure out where I needed to go. I remember there was one gentleman who wrote down some courses that he thought I needed to take to become a speech therapist. And I kept that paper with me for 2.5 years, taking every course. If the veterans back then did not have the grit to stick with it, they didn't finish. And I'm a testament to that. We are developing fantastic programs now for our foster youth programs. We are tracking those students, our ELS students, and many more. And it is because of the funding of these programs that I have mentioned. I would just like to tell you about a couple of initiatives that you can be really proud of that are happening on campuses. On August 16th, 17th, and 18th, we held not a 20-minute orientation online for our students, not a 1-hour orientation for our students, a 3-day orientation for our students that was called Laser Week. And we had 600 students attend that orientation. Could not have been done without our SSSP funds. So I will stop here now for the sake of time, but just tell you, the Chief Student Service Officers appreciate all that you've done and all the staff have done, and thank Mario and everyone who has been so helpful in our initiatives.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Arlene Elsrode. I'm the Dean of Enrollment Services at Irvine Valley College. I'm also the college's 3SP coordinator.
I have been named as the primary lead on our integrated planning effort as well. So as part of the integrated plan, I understand that there's a proposal to integrate the funding, the funding is being proposed. I met with my colleagues from Region 8 last week, primarily 3SP coordinators and directors and SEP directors and coordinators, to discuss the merging of these program funds and what that might mean for our colleges. Development of the integrated plan began months ago. Many of our colleges are planning on finalizing the integrated plan by the end of this month so we can start moving forward to present it to our Board of Trustees. The consensus among my colleagues was that consolidating these grants will create internal competition for these resources. SEP directors expressly concerned that equity efforts could be compromised. Dedicated funding demonstrates an explicit commitment towards serving disproportionately impacted students and reducing our equity gaps. There was also equal concern that non-credit programs could be adversely impacted by consolidating these resources. My colleagues felt strongly that integrating the funding at this point would not be beneficial. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, the last three, Adam Wetzman, Jeremiah Perez, and Alejandro Lamelli.
Okay, thank you. So concerning this budget change proposal, there's certainly a lot to support here. We think that the priorities for increase to the base, full and part-time faculty support, professional development, equal opportunity diversity, all super wonderful things. We'd like to thank Vice Chancellors Mattoon and Rodriguez. They're there for working with us to incorporating the feedback that we gave them. A couple of things to think about. One is that now might be a good time to look at the backlogs we have in some statewide student services programs like DSPNS and EOPNS. There is a backlog potentially there, and if there's money available, either now or perhaps looking at the May revise, we might want to try to allocate some of the funding there. Also, there's no one-time funding in the BCP, so this also might be a good idea to think about where we can get some additional funds, perhaps for instructional equipment or deferred maintenance. And again, as I said before, we need a plan for kind of faculty funding, professionalization, so that we can achieve those goals in the vision, so that we don't have to keep going back and asking for more money for full-time faculty or part-time office hours or part-time faculty equality and things like that. So again, thank you for the budget change proposal. We do like this. Just a couple of suggestions.
Thank you. President Solano, Chancellor Oakley, members of the board. My name is Alejandro Lamelli. I'm with the Student Center for California Community Colleges, and I'm a student at Long Beach City College. I'm here today as almost an echo of students who have sat in this exact same position before, mostly before you all in budget proposals. I see a lot of funding for various projects and new initiatives, and I understand the intention is to improve this idea of student success. But what I don't see when I'm looking at the request is an individual commitment to individual students and their own successes. I noted a few things. Last year, there was a commitment of $25 million to Veterans Resource Centers. Today, there is none. Last year, there was a commitment of $25 million to mental health. Today, there is none. Last year, there was a commitment of $20 million to open educational resources, which I do not see one today. And last year, as well as this year, there continues to be no commitment to students facing food and housing insecurity. While it's reassuring to see the commitment to restoring Cal Grants to better serve community college students, these issues like mental health, rising textbook costs, and so many other challenges that students face today are not new initiatives. These aren't fads, these aren't trends, these aren't things or issues that can be, solved with a one-year budget cycle. Students continue to be misled by the sticker costs of community colleges and are honestly surprised by the non-tuition costs. As noted, even in this request, the confusing silos of our student support services. When looking at this item, I encourage you all to ask yourselves, do the requests you are putting forward to today best serve and prioritize the student success of over 2 million students across our system? I respect the comments that this request does not encapsulate all the advocacy efforts that the Chancellor's Office and the Board of Governors will be advocating for at the state legislature. But I, in good conscience, can't go back to my peers and tell them to trust in a system that does not recognize their challenges. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comments on this item. Members of the board, first of all, do we have a motion? An action item to approve
Move
the budget
approval.
proposal.
Move the budget recommendation.
That was, okay. Approval. Have a motion by Baum and a second by Haynes. All right, now let's open it up for discussion or questions by members of the board. Yes, Member DeLilly.
Just this year ago was my first meeting, and this was my first, one of my first action items that I took. And I really walked away with my head held high. I felt like we took strong stances on things of mental health, VRCs, food insecurity, campus safety. And today, while I understand the functionality issues of the previous budget, I feel like we haven't done that. And as Alejandro Lomelli pointed out so eloquently, I think that's a mistake. I understand why this budget is constructed the way that it is. However, I think we took a strong stance. I think our students saw it, they appreciated it, it meant a lot to them, and I think we should continue that this budget cycle.
I think those are excellent statements and excellent questions, and I think what we need to do is be more clear about how we are translating this budget into the priorities that you just discussed. Without going into a long-winded discussion about the last 30 years, I mean, it's been clear that there has been money in budgets in higher education focused on specific demographics of students. There's been little evidence that that money has made any forward progress in the success of those students. What we'd like to do is translate a budget into holding colleges accountable for the $8.6 billion that they have in support of every student on their campus. So I agree with you that there isn't a specific line item for each member of the college community. I personally think that that should be a priority of 114 colleges and that we should fund 114 colleges to support every member of their community. So certainly, you know, this is a departure from the way we approached this last year or in years previous. And perhaps we haven't communicated that well enough, that just because we haven't said something specific about veterans doesn't mean that we shouldn't hold 114 colleges accountable for veterans, because the reality is that there is money in this budget for veterans. The question is, are the colleges allocating the resources that they have for veterans? And yes, we will certainly look for opportunities to find funding for specific groups of individuals as we find those opportunities in the legislature. I mean, we can certainly call out veterans or foster youth or whichever particular demographic this board feels compelled to do so. But what I'd like the board to think about and consider over time is how we use a different lens and hold our colleges accountable for every student, and that accountability translates into action. There is nothing stopping 114 colleges from having Veterans Resource Centers today. The only thing stopping them is a discussion on their campus as to whether or not they're going to allocate resources. So we can add resources. The challenge with that is, as long as you keep creating categorical pots of money, they never become integrated into the fabric of the college. And what we'd like to do is to pivot that. And integrate every dollar that's available in pursuit of every student. So I ask for the board's patience with that pivot. I can assure you that our language to the colleges is going to be focused on this issue of equity for all students. But I certainly understand the board's discomfort with the departure from where we were last year, and certainly open to questions or suggestions or further recommendations.
Board Member Haynes.
So let me just start off by supporting what you've just said, Chancellor Oakley. We really do need to restructure as community colleges where our priorities and our values are and have our budgets reflective of that. So I'm with you on that. But I do want to draw attention to, I recognize that financial aid is within the budget, but there's no dollar item, and I recognize that the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's Office has always been in support of financial aid. But I also recognize the legislative process. You fight for all of them, and then somebody else helps them make the decision on where the priorities go sometimes. I just want to make certain that we are recognizing students' need for a very different level of, our community college students, a very different level of commitment to making certain that they are successful relative to financial aid. Because it really is, and that may be restructuring. It may be part of that answer, may be the promise. Part of that may actually be other kinds of pots of money, but that 6% of Cal Grants is allocated to community college students, which represent a significant number of students trying to make it through the educational system, is not only disheartening, it's just kind of wrong. And so, while you may not want to say that too, but it is, it's wrong, and we really need to reorient those dollars. And so I just wanted to be on record saying that.
Any other comments? I'm going to make a comment. I'm going to support, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's fine.
Member Walker Griffin.
Just kind of piggybacking off of what the Chancellor said and Board Member DeLilly, with a combination of both statements, I do think we should hold the schools accountable, but at the same time, if we could just maybe like get at least half of that money to help students out, because as I was looking at this, I realized that there's pretty much two types of trauma. There's the one that you can only experience in war and that only veterans will understand. And there's also day-to-day trauma that many students go through that we don't think about. For example, my school sits in the ghetto, it sits in the hood. It's pretty common to be walking off campus and you'll hear gunshots in the background. You know, I don't know what that's like because I'm from an upper-class suburban city, but I know that the majority of those students have to go through that every single day. And we know now that there's many different mental illnesses, disabilities, whatever you want to call it or whatever you want to label it. And that's why I think we really need to have some more money go into it, but also hold our schools accountable so that we can help out as many students as we can. Because today is a new day, and it is not like the 50s where you just categorize in one single block. You know, it's 2017, and I think it's time that we start treating it like it is.
Sumner?
I just wanted to sort of add on what he was like, but like safety and security, you know, and it's like there's certain things that there are deliverables. Like we had the deliverable to the board was the emergency operations plan. We still have not seen that report. We were supposed to see every college campus is supposed to have an emergency operations plan that the Board of Governors is supposed to look at and review. And especially with all the shootings and stuff that is going on, and I believe it's a yearly reportable event that we were supposed to review as the Board of Governors. So I just think it's really important with what's going on in our communities and in the world that we, you know, safety and security for our students, for them to feel safe, you know, to hear that from us. So.
So, did you want to, Board Member Shaw? Did you want to speak?
Maybe I would like the Chancellor to talk more about, to answer what Mr. Walker Griffin just said and try to explain to him how your holistic approach would be better than specifically funding different.
So there are different ways of approaching the budget ask and approaching the Department of Finance, approaching the legislature. One way that there are signals that the legislature and finance sends that we want to align with and take advantage of. And certainly Vice Chancellor Rodriguez has done a very good job of doing that. There's also the goals of categorical integration and providing guidance to the colleges to make sure that they understand what the Board of Governors, what the legislature expects that money to be used for. We need to do a better job of that, and that's part of our challenge and part of the goals here, is making sure that, and I firmly believe that no one is in a better place to determine the needs of a community than the members of those 114 colleges on the ground. They are in a better position than we are to determine what the needs are in 114 different communities. Having said that, we, the Chancellor's Office, need to be much more clear about what our expectations are. And I think that's something that we have been used to doing, and we need to do more of. I mean, there are issues, as you mentioned. Mental health is not clearly identified. I mean, you can say it's part of many of these goals, and maybe it's something we need to draw out more and be specific. But rest assured that the other part of this budget process is, as the budget discussions kick off, we will see members of the legislature want to take these up. We will, because they're a part of the goals, we will find those opportunities and drive those home, just as we did in this budget cycle. Sometimes it's difficult to see out front exactly where those opportunities are going to be, but we will certainly take this and take the board's interest in these areas to heart and find opportunities to highlight mental health, to highlight food insecurity, to highlight veterans, to highlight foster youth. That will happen. We just feel that to the colleges, it sends the wrong signals to let them off the hook and say, don't worry about taking care of that now. We'll try to find you some more money to do that. We want the opposite to happen. We want the work to be happening today, and if we find more resources, then we'll supplement the work that they're doing on the ground.
So let me inject myself in this just a bit. Philosophically, I think I agree with the Chancellor's approach on the general and trying to drive down performance to the campus level. I think that's the right approach, and I think the way we set those 6 goals was appropriate. You have to choose. But I also think there's an issue of minimum standards, if you want to call it that, right? So you could say to folks, hey, it's up to you to figure out how you're going to prioritize because you know what's there, but there may be some minimum standards that we want to see happen on campuses. Maybe in some cases we're going to say the minimum standard is you have to have a VRC, even if it's a closet. You have to have a VRC because it provides a place where veterans who have unique issues can go. Or a minimum standard is there's some standard of mental health support that is provided at schools, at the campuses, because we know that this is an issue across all of our colleges, regardless of the rural, urban, whatever. People are in trauma, and in fact, the poorest of the poor are in our community colleges. Our community colleges are where homeless kids are. Our community colleges are where the hungry are and the homeless. So it's a struggle because we're not really a basic minimum standards making body for those social issues. We do that in Title V, around instruction, around minimum qualifications for faculty. We do it in all of these detailed ways, but we haven't really gotten into the business of mandating certain parameters of programs. Instead, as the counselor says, we've allocated like little pots of money here and there, and then colleges that are so inclined go after them. Right? So I'm willing to trust the Chancellor on this one. This is his first budget. We hired him to be big picture visionary dude. I think he's delivered on that big picture vision. I'm willing to trust him. But I also think, in fairness to our student representatives and to Board Member Simner, it's also kind of upon us to say, and by the way, while you're in the halls of the legislature cutting deals, because we know how this works, the other things we really care about are, we want some more money for VRCs, we want to see something around mental health, we want to see something around food insecurity, or maybe something targeted around homeless students and foster youth. I don't know, we can say that, because lots happen between now and when the budget gets done in June and July, or even in the May revise. So I'm willing to support the motion to approve this budget with some direction to the Chancellor on particular programs or emphasis that we'd like to see him pursue with members that are so inclined, as he noted. That is complete. So, And for myself, I have been persuaded that the VRCs, and how many do we have now, Nancy? We're getting up there, we're like,
Over 90, right?
yeah, we're close.
But they're all different shapes.
They're all different. I understand that. I understand that. You know, they're not all going to be as nice as the one we saw today. So but I've been persuaded that that's a good expenditure of funds, and I think there's probably a lot of support in the legislature for that. And just as we saw, in a weird way, Norco got their own, they got a little earmark for $2 million, well, somebody will probably get something like that for that district. It's maybe not the best way, but that's what we're in a representative democracy. So I've been persuaded that's an important need. I am definitely persuaded that mental health for our students, mental health care is of great importance. I just haven't grappled with, and I don't think we've really heard how best for us to address it as a system. So if there is a proposal that makes sense at the legislature that we think is going to move the needle, and I'm going to trust our fine staff to help us evaluate that, then we should get behind that. And I think the third thing that I've been persuaded, and I give a lot of credit to Board Member Shaw for highlighting this, is this issue of food insecurity. It's real. And the latest studies that we're hearing, our students are bearing the brunt of it, because that goes hand in hand with homelessness. So for myself, Chancellor, as you're going through those things, if you see an opportunity to hop on the bandwagon and kind of push the rock uphill for some of these programs and help it get it across the finish line, I think that would be much appreciated by this board. But that is my opinion. And I'd like to call for a vote on the main motion.
I'm ready to vote.
Okay. All those in favor of the budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, abstention. Board Member Hawkins, can you give us any direction and sense? Because not that we're completely consensus-oriented, but what's bugging you and how can we address it?
I didn't really appreciate the major change in the process without prior notification to the board. Any highlight it was coming until I got the agenda. It's really multi-year difference, and to just snap your fingers, make a change. I'm not willing to change that quickly, especially with no conversation to the Board of Governors prior to it happening.
Appreciate that. Okay, with that, let's move on to the next item. We're at 5:27. I recommend, I'm so sorry, Keith, I told you we were going to take you today, but I recommend we go to public comment, and because we're getting tired, and the rest of the agenda is pretty important. We want to give it the attention it needs. So let's call for public comment.
Okay, Marvin Martinez and Caitlin Ogawa. Anybody else still here? Okay.
Hi, thank you. I'm Caitlin Ogawa with Asian Americans Advancing Justice Orange County, housed here in Santa Ana. And I wanted to talk about API disaggregation and how important it is for our community colleges and the communities that my organization serves. So in 2014, we released our Community of Contrast report that analyzed disaggregated data throughout California in hopes to change the perception of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander communities as unequivocally successful results in the neglect of their needs and concerns. So statewide, Asian American adults as a whole are more likely than other racial groups to have a college degree, but with disaggregated data, we actually learned that Vietnamese, Laotian, Cambodian, and Hmong Americans are least likely to have a college degree. So with this disaggregated data, you can actually see the need for social services and programs that identify these specific discrete ethnic groups and the need to have data-driven policies to support them. And then even more specifically, 1/5 of the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander population of adults are, 1/5 of them are college graduates. So when you say as a whole that Asian Americans may be producing more college graduates, when you actually look at disaggregated data, you really do see disparities. So it's crucial for the Board of Governors to set a precedent for disaggregating data on these discrete ethnic groups at each of the 72 community college districts, because with these additional resources that are data-driven, it will be incredibly necessary to increase high school graduation rates and improve both access to college and college completion rates for these AA and HPI ethnic groups here, not only in Orange County, but statewide. And also, Orange County is home to the third largest Asian American population in the nation. So I think it's really crucial for the community colleges to really showcase how diverse their students are and how important it is for programs to represent them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Linda Waugh, and I'm a trustee at Pasadena City College, but I'm also one of the founders of the Community College Asian Pacific Islander Trustees and Administrators Caucus. So today I'm here to advocate for the community college system to voluntarily begin to disaggregate the data for the Asian Pacific Islander students. Last year, Assembly Bill 1726 by Assemblymember Rob Bonta was passed but was amended to delay education disaggregation until 2020 due to objections of cost and perceived low benefit to a small population. However, earlier this year, the UC and CSU systems voluntarily began API data disaggregation, recognizing that some API subgroups are among the lowest performing in education attainment and at the lowest poverty levels. Several community colleges have already begun disaggregating the API data and have implemented student success programs for those groups with good results, and I've included some of that data in the handouts that you have. Those reports are included from State Center Community College District, Foothill De Anza Community College District, and LACCD, as my colleague President Martinez will talk about, has begun that disaggregation and included their letter of support and their board resolution. Contrary to past concerns of cost barriers, these colleges have indicated that time and cost have been nominal in this effort. CCC Apply already collects individualized ethnic data from our students and only needs the colleges to consistently disaggregate the data, analyzing, reporting, and utilizing this data, including measures for success in their student equity plans. Demographics show the API is the fastest growing immigrant population, and 40% of API students attend community college. Impact and benefit to the API populations can be significant to many of these subgroups, especially the Pacific Islanders, Southeast Asians, Filipinos, and now the fast increasing South Asian populations. APITA supports the Chancellor's 7 core commitments for the Vision for Success, and especially Commitment 4, fostering data, inquiry, and evidence. Inconsistent analysis and reporting of data will continue to be barriers to success in properly planning resources for identified underperforming groups. In implementation of this commitment, we especially urge the application of this commitment to the API subgroups whose plight are currently overlooked, marginalized, and virtually rendered invisible to assistance and aid by being cast under a model minority myth for the API blanket. Please do not overlook the API subgroups who could easily be identified and provide needed assistance through disaggregation now. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Marvin Martinez, President of East Los Angeles College. I'm here also on behalf of the LA Community College District as well as Chancellor Rodriguez. So in support of my colleagues, we certainly want to be able to say that we stand in full support of disaggregation of API data. As most of you know, I think from the documentation you may have received, our Board of Trustees in April 2015 passed a resolution urging all the colleges to begin, all 9 colleges in the district to begin to disaggregate the data. So as a college president, what I can tell you is that there's nothing better than having data that's disaggregated as we begin to appropriate and allocate dollars. You know, it's important that we have an understanding of who our students are. With the Asian Pacific population, it's not disaggregated. Right now, we've begun to do that, but before that, it was not disaggregated. So a lot of the data that we were receiving, we basically had to do our best to figure out what would be the best way to utilize those dollars to serve these populations. We urge that you change this. You know, we can't continue in this manner. We have to move in a direction where we're getting to look at this data more specifically. because there are differences in the populations. We can't just clump them all together and say, here's the program we're going to develop and hopefully it works for everybody. We can't continue in that direction. We have to continue in a direction where we are looking at specific data. We're looking to see what are the challenges they're facing in regards to admissions, enrollment, graduation, transfer, and how we best utilize the dollars to help those students meet those needs. We've begun to do that now with the LA Community College District, and I can tell you that it's helping me drastically in order to ensure that we are appropriating the dollars, again, allocating the dollars in the best way that we can. I truly hope, hold deep, to my heart what Chancellor Oakley just said, that I need to be held accountable, and I want to be held accountable for serving every student. But also at the same time, I do agree that I need to have the data in order to be able to do that the best way that I can. Because when you have the data, you can begin to also hold me accountable. You can begin to say, look, here is what's going on with the Cambodian students at East LA College. Here's their retention rates, here's their transfer rates, and here's how you begin to better serve them so they can go ahead and increase their transfer rates. They can also graduate from the college. So I do urge you to begin to take a look at this, and let me conclude by saying that if we can also begin to look at our sister institutions of higher education, such as the CSUs and the UCs, because they do that. They disaggregate the data in order for the universities and both systems to better serve students. So again, I urge you to take a look at this really important issue so that we can begin to serve our students in a whole lot better way. Thank you.
Thank you. Last two, Ho-Len Lee and Craig Hayward.
So Commissioner Helen Lee was not able to stay for this meeting, but she left me her statement, and with your permission, I'd like to just quickly read it. Is that okay? Very short.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll read fast. So Commissioner Helen Lee from the Asian Pacific Islander American Affairs Commission states, the commission fought hard to pass AB 1726, which the governor finally signed last September, but the bill was amended to collect demographic data from public health agencies only. We are urging the community colleges to join the CSUs, Cal States, and UCs to voluntarily disaggregate and collect and publish your student data. Last month, the commission conducted public hearings at downtown Los Angeles City Hall and heard powerful testimony from community groups expressing the need for disaggregated data to ensure that grants and programs are truly reaching the people and communities who need them most. She cites the pilot program at El Camino College. PILOT, which stands for the Pacific Islander Leaders of Tomorrow, provides a mentorship program to help these students finish their degrees. These same students may not have been on the radar if API data was lumped together without distinguishing between the 40 diverse ethnicities and languages under the API umbrella. And then I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chancellor, honorable members, and colleagues. My name is Craig Hayward, and I am the Dean of Institutional Effectiveness at Bakersfield College and a longtime collaborating researcher with the RP Group and the Chancellor's Office. In the past, I've collaborated with the Chancellor's Office to design the Basic Skills Cohort Progress Tracker and the Transfer Velocity Cohort Report. Currently, I'm a member of the Multiple Measures Assessment Project Research Team, so not a lightweight, been around. I'm here today to speak with you for a moment about a project that can help achieve the strategic goal of reducing and then closing regional equity gaps. Over the past year, I've been working with the RP Group and the Chancellor's Office and stakeholders from the field. Eric Cooper, an RP Group board member, and myself have developed and led an ad hoc work group in response to questions coming from the work in the field around the Student Equity Plan. The impetus was twofold. First, to clarify the manner in which colleges should be disaggregating their student bodies. The Student Equity Plan requires that colleges analyze student performance on a number of data points, disaggregated by ethnicity, as well as other student characteristics. The field suffered from a lack of clarity around how to handle students categorized as multi-ethnic and students who, under the current categories, would be classified as other or unknown. The second driving force for this work was an outcry from the field for the recognition of important groups that were currently being ignored, swept into other larger ethnic categories. It is, so as the lead also for the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative's Data Disaggregation Applied Solution Kit, yes, it's a mouthful, I can tell you that it's only through disaggregation that we can know if students are disproportionately impacted. Examples of these ignored groups include Hmong, Persian, Chaldean, Syrian, Russian, Israeli, Salvadorian. The work group's process has been based on the data collection process from the CSU, further validated by feedback from the field and stakeholders and work group members, as well as the examination of census data. The expanded collection of ethnic categories would not interfere with mandated federal reporting. All of the ethnic groups would roll up into the larger categories required for federal reporting. So I'm here today to ask you to please consider supporting additional disaggregation of student ethnicity as an additional tool in our campaign to close equity gaps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that concludes public comment today. Thank you all for coming and
Yes.
making comments on this.
Madam Chair, is there an opportunity for us or me to reflect on the comments
Please.
just made?
Yeah.
I want to echo the fact that, as we all know, there's a myriad of nationalities under
Yeah.
the API category. And as the speakers mentioned, the success rate amongst the different nationalities in this group varies immensely. And so I wonder if there's a way for the Chancellor's Office to actually look into this topic and perhaps find a way to further disaggregate or work with the 114 colleges to actually make the disaggregation of data available. I think in the time of, in the era in which we're striving for equity across all groups, I just don't want us to either intentionally or unintentionally neglect or not achieve equity in one or two particular demographics. So I wonder if that's a topic that could be explored further.
To quickly answer your question, Member Vaughn, we agree. We agree that this is a necessity. And the issue isn't whether or not we support this or not. The issue is how do we transform our the Chancellor's Office data and research arm to be able to reflect the changes that we need to see happen. So we'll have more to say on that, but we agree that the more disaggregation, the better.
Board Member Haynes.
So Chancellor, is part of the challenge in the Chancellor's Office, is another part of the challenge in the field? Or is everyone able to provide that so that the Chancellor's Office can have it? Or is it more of the technology piece of it?
So certainly there, as has been noted, some colleges and some college districts are already themselves disaggregating the data based on the information that they can collect themselves. We yet don't have a system-wide approach to this, and part of it is our capacity in the Chancellor's Office. That is one of our fundamental goals in the Chancellor's Office and the subject of a recent reorganization. And as we look to also the Success Center and the capacity that they can bring to the Chancellor's Office, we certainly want to support the efforts that have just been described, because we do agree that in order to close these achievement gaps, we need to really understand the population of each community, not in broad brushes.
Mr. Walker Griffin, Board Member Walker Griffin.
We should agendize this.
Yeah,
Have an extended
I agree.
conversation.
Is there some sort of like annual like student census that goes out that says like, 2014 there were, I don't know, Contra Costa College and these schools were 14% Tongan? Is there anything like that?
There is not a system-wide census that goes out. Each college themselves gathers demographic data for those who report demographic data, and we recognize that some students don't report demographic data or on ethnicity. We have a growing number of students that don't. But there are ways that we can better collect that data and disaggregate that data because it is important to the work that's happening around equity.
So to Board Member Baum's point, Chancellor, I know you all are trying to figure out this question, but is this something that would be appropriate to agendize in November, maybe at least a plan of what it would take, or do you need more time than that?
I think what would be most beneficial to the board, because this is just one piece of the data discussion, it would be most helpful to come back with a report on what data we're collecting, what we're planning on doing in the future. I'd have to get back to you whether or not that could be ready for November, given the reorganization that's taking place right now and the recent personnel changes. But we'd be happy to come back with a report. I just need a little bit of time to figure out if November is adequate.
Fair enough. I mean, I think the point is to come back with a pretty fulsome discussion of this. There's certainly, I think, a sense interest on the part of the board. I, for myself, can say I think that disaggregation issue is critical. The variation between achievement gaps within the API, and that just lumps together just vastly different communities. I mean, we really need to figure that out. Board Member Avalos.
Yeah, if I can make a comment on that. So can we be strategic, though? Can we look at, if we're going to look at this, let's look at like BOG versus non-BOG. Can we look at, other things that are available out there that potentially we're not looking at? Because income level, to me, probably matters a lot in terms of future success, and I don't know if we're capturing that. So I just want us to take a step back and just, if we're going to open up the data conversation, let's have a conversation of what are we capturing and what could we capture that makes our data reports even more reflective.
Okay, any other further discussion on this matter? With that, we're going to be adjourned. I think we start back up at 10 o'clock, same place? 9 o'clock here? How can it be here?
They said it was going to be here and we could leave our paperwork here if you wanted. Why are they going to move it?
Danny, what are you doing?
Gather everybody here, we can walk over.
Okay, and Karen, can we leave paper here? Okay, great. All right, folks, we'll see you mañana.
9 o'clock.
Is this your pen?
I thought it was yours, because it's
Is it London?
Me.